Chapter 12:06. Hearing the words of the old man from the heavenly destruction god's bloodline, everyone felt somewhat relieved. At the very least, their vigilance toward him had gradually disappeared. They gestured for the elder to continue speaking. The elder stared at the abyss below and took a deep breath. "Have any of you really been to the heavenly harmony divine nation?" Everyone fell silent upon hearing this. In the end, they all shook their heads. However, they could hear the suspicion in the elder's words. This suspicion seemed to have angered some of the humans present. Who doesn't know about the heavenly harmony divine nation in the primal chaos realm? As long as we go there, even the primal chaos god tribes can't do anything to us. The heavenly harmony divine nation is our most reliable harbor. How can you make such a guess? If you don't believe in the existence of the heavenly harmony divine nation and even suspect Lord Adept, why do you want to follow us to find the heavenly harmony divine nation? To them, the words, heavenly harmony, were sacred and inviolable. When Qing Xian saw this, she couldn't help but recall what Long Chen had said. At this moment, she finally understood what Long Chen had meant. None of these people had actually seen the heavenly harmony divine nation, yet they were filled with devotion. Sometimes, faith was truly a terrifying thing. Long Chen didn't say anything. He didn't refute the elder's words, nor did he hate him like everyone else. The elder seemed to have noticed Long Chen's different attitude toward this matter. He ignored everyone else and walked toward him. He said to Long Chen in a low voice, "If the heavenly harmony divine nation is really as the rumors say, then it's the best place for my grandson to go. However, there are some things that we have to guard against. The feeling you give me is completely different from theirs. If my guess is correct, you don't completely believe in this matter either." Long Chen remained silent for a moment, but he still didn't say anything. He only calmly replied, "I haven't seen it with my own eyes, so how can I believe it or not? At the very least, I can't determine whether the rumors are true or false. Let's not talk about this for now. How much longer do we have to wait? How are we going to find the people from the divine power, heavenly god tribe? Can they really lead us to the people from the heavenly harmony divine nation?" Long Chen didn't continue discussing the heavenly harmony divine nation with him. He felt that this matter had no meaning. Regardless of whether the heavenly harmony divine nation was real or not, they had to make a trip there. At the very least, the current situation could not be changed. Even without them, these humans and living beings of the heavenly void god's bloodline would continue to walk down this path. The old man stared at Long Chen thoughtfully for a while. Seeing that Long Chen had no intention of talking, he said, "In at most 3 days, someone will come out from the bottom of this cliff to meet us." 3 days. When the people around heard the news, they were all overjoyed. They didn't even plan on resting. They planned on waiting for the divine power heavenly god clan's living beings to arrive. The teleportation array had brought them here. It was impossible for the other chaos god tribes to catch up to them within a short period of time. Day after day. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Everyone was still standing on top of the cliff. They had set up a concealment array formation around them. However, after 3 days, there was still no movement at the edge of the cliff. The 3 elders furrowed their brows as they asked the elder from the heavenly destruction god's bloodline, 3 days have already passed. Why hasn't anyone come to receive us? The 3 elders weren't the only ones who felt this way. In fact, everyone present was burning with anxiety. The longer they stayed here, the more danger they would be in. Continuing to wait like this wasn't a good idea. When the old man heard everyone's words, a hint of confusion appeared on his face. Just as he was about to speak, Long Chen suddenly opened his eyes from his meditation. His gaze quickly swept toward the bottom of the cliff. "The people we've been waiting for have arrived. 3 days is quite punctual." Everyone instantly gathered at the edge of the cliff and looked down into the abyss. Sure enough, 3 streaks of bronze light shot up from the abyss below the cliff. When these streaks of light stopped moving, they discovered that these three people's bodies were as if they had been forged from bronze. These three people were all over 2 meters tall, and their bodies were brimming with muscles. They were filled with explosive power, and their bronze bodies were covered with a thick layer of scales. Their limbs were also covered with long bony weapons. These bony weapons were incompatible with their bronze bodies, and they radiated with an extremely sinister light. The three elders took the lead and walked forward with joyful expressions. "Are you the traitors of the Divine Power Heavenly God clan?" The three elders of the Divine Power Heavenly God clan swept their torch-like gazes across the crowd. In the end, they nodded. The person in the lead said coldly, "We can indeed bring you to the receiving place. Follow us." The three of them didn't say much. Instead, the bronze streaks of light flowed from their bodies like rivers as they fell into the abyss below the cliff. The abyss, which had been completely empty, suddenly became as bright as day. The three of them took the lead and entered the abyss. Everyone moved forward. Long Chun and the other two exchanged a glance with the elder of the Divine Power Heavenly Destruction clan before walking at the very front. Qing Xian looked down into the abyss and said to Long Chen in a low voice, "These people should be fine. If they hadn't opened the door to the abyss, we wouldn't have been able to reach where we were supposed to go even if we jumped down." Before the three of them had even moved, the other humans and the three elders had already charged down into the abyss. Long Chun and the others didn't hesitate and entered the abyss one after the other. After they had crossed 100,000 feet into the abyss, the scenery around them rapidly changed. Their originally downward trajectory had actually become straight up. This feeling was truly strange and unpredictable. After a few dozen breaths, they once again arrived above the abyss. However, the scene before them was no longer the same as before. In the distance, there were 6 crimson gold towers standing in a forest. The 3 members of the Divine Power Heavenly God clan appeared to be extremely cold. They only said a single word before rushing toward the towers. When everyone arrived at the foot of the nearest tower, they saw that it was already filled with humans and Primal Chaos God clan members. These people were bathed in the crimson gold light of the towers, and their auras seemed to have disappeared. If one wasn't standing right in front of them, they wouldn't be able to sense them at all. The Divine Power Heavenly God clan wasn't the only human and Primal Chaos God clan members here. There were many other Primal Chaos God clan members here. An elder slowly walked out from the crowd. He stared at Long Chun and the others and said, "Our Divine Strength God is here. This is the gathering place of the God traders from the various Primal Chaos God tribes. In 10 days we will know where the Heavenly Harmony God Nation is. You can stay here for now. It's very safe here." Many humans behind Long Chun couldn't help but cheer. Even the 3 elders completely relaxed. Many humans walked out from below the towers and walked toward them. They greeted each other and led them into the towers. Chapter 1207. The Divine Power Heavenly God Bloodline. This clan did not cultivate divine power or spell techniques, and they did not even use weapons. They were the clan with the greatest physical strength in the entire world, and their bodies were comparable to divine weapons from head to toe. In the Primal Chaos realm, very few people dared to provoke this clan. After Long Chun and the others entered this place, they settled down in one of the golden pagodas. This wait lasted for 10 days. The 3 elders finally could not hold themselves back any longer. They called Long Chun and the elder from the Heavenly Destruction God bloodline, and the 2 of them walked toward the tallest golden pagoda. Inside the golden pagoda, the elder from the Divine Power Heavenly God bloodline sat upright in an empty hall. The entire hall looked as if it had been forged from gold. The human elder beside Long Chen was the first to speak. "We've already been here for 10 days. When will we be able to head to the receiving location? You said 10 days earlier. Now that 10 days have passed, why is there no news at all?" The old man slowly stood up. He swept his gaze across the crowd and said confidently, "I've already received news of the receiving location. They've been ambushed, so we've been delayed for 2 days. Since you've all come here today, I have something to discuss with all of you. According to Tian Rong's instructions, everyone who heads to the Heavenly Harmony Divine Nation must be implanted with a Heavenly Harmony imprint. You should have let down your guard during these past few days. I hope you can understand this. Heavenly Harmony imprint? Long Chen and the elder from the Heavenly Destruction God bloodline frowned. The elder from the Heavenly Destruction God bloodline asked, "What are the uses of the Heavenly Harmony imprint? What will happen if we implant this imprint?" He was not a true trader, and he did not believe in the Heavenly Harmony imprint. It was inevitable that he would feel conflicted. Long Chen was the same. The elder from the Divine Power Heavenly God bloodline gradually stood up. With a wave of his right hand, streaks of bronze light condensed in front of him. Finally, they transformed into a dazzling light that did not dissipate. This is the Heavenly Harmony imprint. In order to ensure the safety of the Heavenly Harmony Divine Nation, everyone must be implanted with this imprint. As soon as he finished speaking, the dazzling light flew toward everyone. Long Chen and the elder from the Heavenly Destruction God bloodline took the lead and walked forward. They sent their divine senses. After a short moment, their brows furrowed even deeper. The object contained a powerful will. Although it was condensed by the person in front of him, the origin of the object did not belong to him. If he planted this thing, it was tantamount to putting his life in the hands of others. The old man from the Divine Force Heavenly God bloodline looked deeply at Long Chen and Huang Xiaolong, then said indifferently, "You still have 2 days to consider. As long as you plant this imprint, you can leave for the Heavenly Harmony Divine Nation." After saying that, he gestured for everyone to leave. Before Long Chen and the others could say anything, the 3 elders from the Heavenly Void God's bloodline glanced at each other before walking forward. In deep voices, they said, "Since we believe in the Heavenly Fusion God, we're willing to accept this item." The old man from the Divine Power Heavenly God lineage nodded slightly. His right hand moved again, and more beams of light appeared in front of everyone. After the 3 elders received the items, they bowed and retreated. Long Chen and the others followed closely behind. When everyone returned to the Golden Pagoda, the 3 elders were about to send the balls of light into everyone's bodies. The old man from the Heavenly Destruction God clan couldn't help but sneer. In a deep voice, he said, "Do you really believe in the so-called Heavenly Fusion God so much?" Long Chen couldn't help but walk toward the 3 elders from the Heavenly Void God bloodline. In a grave voice, he said, "Have you really thought it through? If you plant this item, there's no turning back." The 2 elders finished speaking. However, Elder San Ming's brows were tightly furrowed, and his expression became slightly gloomy. The person in the lead said to Long Chen, "The Heavenly Fusion Divine Nation is our last hope. That place is definitely our land of freedom. Although we owe you a favor, we don't believe in the Heavenly Fusion God. This is our decision. We hope that you won't interfere." This person's words couldn't be any clearer. At this point, they were already on different paths and couldn't work together. If Long Chen and the others didn't accept the Heavenly Fusion imprint, they wouldn't be able to head to the Heavenly Fusion Divine Nation. It would be equivalent to them parting ways. However, Long Chen didn't blame them for this. After all, they were only speaking from their own point of view. In their hearts, the Heavenly Fusion Divine Nation was a pure land. It was also a land of faith. Long Chen fell silent for a moment. Then, he transmitted his voice to the elder in the lead. In a deep voice, he said, "I have a compromise. If you give me the imprint, I can weaken the intent within this item, then, we can all enter the Heavenly Fusion Divine Nation. If something unexpected happens, we'll be able to protect ourselves." Just as Long Chen finished speaking, the old man's expression became even more unsightly. He directly used the power of nothingness to repel Long Chen's divine consciousness. In a loud voice, he said, "We appreciate your kindness. However, if we really do that, What will happen to the heavenly fusion God's gift to us? I'll pass on your message to everyone. If you're willing to do this, you can plant the imprint. There was a hint of anger in the old man's voice. It was as if he had been insulted. Long Che opened his mouth and wanted to say something. However, he was stopped by the heavenly destruction god beside him. The old man sneered as he swept his gaze across the heavenly void god's group. Then, he said to Long Chen in a low voice, "These people already view the heavenly fusion divine nation as a divine being. No matter what you say, it's meaningless. However, I really want to know what you said to them that made them feel disrespectful toward the heavenly fusion divine nation." Long Chen could only shake his head helplessly as he watched the three elders plant the imprints of the heavenly fusion divine nation on everyone. He didn't force these people. After all, this was their choice. Right now, he could only hope that the heavenly fusion divine nation was truly as pure as they had imagined. Then, he conveyed his thoughts to the heavenly destruction gods group. The old man wasn't a god traitor. Thus, he was even more dismissive of the heavenly fusion divine nation. Thus, he immediately agreed. Long Chen and the two elders from the heavenly destruction gods group were all planted with the heavenly fusion divine nation's imprint by Long Chen. The intent within the imprint had already been enveloped by Long Chen's remnant soul. Over the next 2 days, the golden pagoda that everyone was in was strangely quiet. The matter of the heavenly fusion divine nation's imprint had created a barrier between Long Chen and the others. Apart from a few children who still interacted with Long Chen and the others didn't even converse with them anymore. Of course. However, these people still remembered the kindness that Long Chen had shown them. Thus, they didn't inform the Heavenly Strength Gods group about the Heavenly Fusion Divine Nation's imprint. At noon, light once again appeared on a cliff far away from the Golden Pagoda. More than a dozen people in gray robes appeared on the cliff. Their bodies were enveloped by a dense gray aura, and it was impossible to see their appearances. Swish, swish, swish. Chapter 1208. The heavenly god of misfortune's bloodline was shrouded in gray robes and cultivated the Tao of misfortune. Every member of the heavenly god of misfortune would wear a gray robe when they were young, and they wouldn't take it off until they died. No one doubted the appearance of these people. This was because the heavenly fusion stage was the Tao of misfortune of the heavenly god of misfortune's bloodline. The heavenly fusion envoy nodded at them and replied indifferently, "Have you all planted your heavenly fusion marks? If there are no problems, we can set off now." As soon as he finished speaking, he waved his right hand, and a gray door appeared in front of everyone. "Enter this door in order. If you don't have a heavenly fusion mark, you will be devoured," the heavenly fusion envoy said to everyone. The old man from the heavenly god bloodline took the lead and led many people forward. More and more people stepped into the gray door. The heavenly fusion mark in everyone's body would flicker when they passed through the door, and the members of the heavenly god of misfortune's bloodline would nod slightly. When Long Chen and the others walked through the door, the members of the heavenly void god bloodline couldn't help but frown. They wanted to say something but hesitated. When they saw that Long Chen and the others had safely passed through, they regained their composure and sighed deeply. They didn't say anything else. After the gray-robed man inspected everyone present, he said, "We are the people who will lead you to the place of attraction. The place of attraction is inside the 2U cave. Prepare to set off in 6 hours. The 2U cave." Everyone was shocked when they heard this. They didn't expect the place of attraction to appear here. Long Chen and the others didn't leave. They stood at the edge of the cliff and waited. The old man from the heavenly destruction god bloodline looked at Long Chen in a new light. He didn't treat him as a human. He approached Long Chen and said, "The 2U cave is only 2 days' journey from here. It's underground and it's very complicated. There's also a special type of origin beast hidden there. It seems like we have fewer and fewer friends along the way. I hope that we can trust each other. Long Chen looked at the old man deeply and nodded. This old man's strength was at the Fifth Order God Emperor realm, and he could be considered one of the strongest people here. It was a good thing that he had an ally. As the two were talking, the young man behind the old man stepped forward. His pitch-black eyes stared at Long Chen, causing Long Chen to feel an intense power of destruction. He couldn't help but feel that the primal chaos domain was extremely strange. The offspring of the human race and the Chaos God race could produce an existence whose talent far surpassed that of the Chaos God race. When Long Chen saw the young man walking over, he couldn't help but smile. "Do you want the chaotic mountain spirit?" His words caused the old man from the heavenly destruction god's bloodline to narrow his eyes. It was as if he hadn't expected Long Chen to possess such an item. On the contrary, the young man nodded calmly without saying a word. When Long Chen saw the young man's reaction, his right hand flashed and reached for the young man's forehead. This scene caused the old man's expression to change drastically. "Grandpa, you don't have to worry." The young man stopped the old man and asked Long Chen, "How did you know I wanted this?" Long Chen didn't answer him. In fact, when he planted the heavenly fusion mark on the young man, he could feel the destructive aura within the young man's body guiding the chaotic mountain spirit. The chaotic mountain spirit was a rare treasure to any Chaos God race member, but this young man seemed to desire it even more. At least his grandfather hadn't sensed the chaotic mountain spirit in Long Chen's body. Swoosh, swoosh. When the old man found out that Long Chen had really given the chaotic mountain spirit to his grandson, he was very grateful. Before he could express his gratitude, he saw groups of people turning into streams of light and leaving this place. They didn't hesitate and followed closely behind. Several days later, the group had arrived at the 2U crypt. Along the way, they hadn't been stopped by any Chaos God race members. Everyone present let out a long sigh of relief. Of course, with their current forces, even if they were to be stopped, they would definitely be able to put up a fight. It had to be said. The jade slip that Su Tianxi had given them was extremely well planned. There were a total of 3 entrances to the 2U crypt. Each of them was extremely inconspicuous. The misfortune god's forces suddenly stopped at the entrance of the 2U crypt and said in a deep voice, "Quickly enter. We will destroy all 3 entrances." There are many strange origin beasts in the 2U crypt. A battle is unavoidable. It will definitely attract enemies. Everyone's hearts trembled when they heard this. They just remembered that the misfortune god's forces were late by 2 days. Although the people who had come to stop them hadn't found them yet, it would be different once they entered the 2U crypt. Everyone immediately quickened their pace and rushed into the 2U crypt. Long Chen and the other 3 followed closely behind. Rumble. As expected. Just as they entered the 2U crypt, the 3 entrances were completely destroyed. There were even gray auras forming runes that suppressed them. Go deep into the center of the crypt. There is a teleportation array that can lead you directly to the heavenly harmony god nation. The misfortune god's voice rumbled and spread throughout the entire 2U crypt. Everyone became excited when they heard this, and they all rushed into the depths of the crypt. This scene caused Long Chen's expression to gradually become gloomy. The misfortune god's words were no different from telling everyone that the heavenly harmony god nation was right in front of them. This thought appeared in everyone's mind. Everyone was bound to rush to the center without any regard for anything else. After all, the heavenly harmony god nation was where all of them believed in. However, this was the 2U crypt. The danger now wasn't just the people who had come to stop them. There were also the origin beasts inside. The heavenly destruction god's elder couldn't help but sneer. It seems that the heavenly harmony god nation of the god traders isn't as clean as we thought. At this rate, at least 1/3 of US will die here. I'm afraid that most of us will be children and humans. Long Chen nodded slightly, obviously agreeing with his words. He said in a low voice, Then do you still plan to let your grandson go to the heavenly harmony god nation? I'm afraid that place isn't as beautiful as you think. The elder shook his head and glanced at the youth behind him. He said in a low voice, "Can we turn back now? The two of us were drinking poison to quench our thirst by defending the ancient path of destruction. Although these people's methods are somewhat dishonorable, the heavenly harmony god nation isn't necessarily a place of absolute evil. It's fine as long as the human race can survive there." After he finished speaking, he brought the youth with him and rushed downward. Long Chun and the other two followed closely behind. Chapter 1209. Inside the mountain slaughtering crypt, numerous python-like source beasts with tentacles all over their bodies walked through the crypt. These beasts were extremely strange. They were surrounded by a powerful tricolored radiance, and their bodies were filled with sharp objects. This is the mountain slaughtering earth beast. It's a type of origin beast that's unique to this place. Its physical body can switch between illusionary and corporeal at any time, the elder from the heavenly destruction god's bloodline explained to Long Chun. As soon as he finished speaking, he escorted the young man behind him as they sped away. Violent destructive energy circled around his body, spreading out for more than 1,000 feet. Any earthly beasts that got close to him would be driven away. Long Chun followed closely behind with Qing Xian. He didn't intend to fight these source beasts with his full strength. Once these source beasts were attacked, their tentacles could transform into another body. They were simply terrifying creatures that couldn't be killed. Their priority was naturally to reach the teleportation array at the center of the crypt. With the old man leading the way, the pressure wasn't too great. About an hour after they entered the mountain slaughtering crypt, the ground suddenly began to shake violently. Everyone panicked. The strange movements of the source beasts in the mountain slaughtering crypt had exposed their intentions. The heavenly harmony divine nation would recruit traders and humans through various channels every once in a while. Naturally, the 9 chaos divine tribes had their own forces. Every time, they would try to kill the person receiving them. They wanted to obtain the method to enter the heavenly harmony divine nation. Rumble. The terrifying tremors became more and more intense, and the ground above them started to crack at a speed visible to the naked eye. Dazzling chaos divine power of various colors poured into the ground without restraint. Many humans died instantly after coming into contact with the surging attack. These humans weren't the traitors. Many of them weren't even god kings. Even a trace of a first-order god emperor's attack was enough to kill them. Long Chun frowned as he looked at the attacks above him. His expression gradually turned cold. Before he could do anything, the old man from the destruction race surrounded him with his destructive aura. The old man said to him, "The 2U crypt is located at the border between the two chaos god races. Those from the Heaven Fusion Divine Nation set up the teleportation point here. They must have been prepared to kill most of the humans. With our strength, we won't be able to stop this. Let's quickly enter the teleportation array and head to the Heavenly Harmony Divine Nation." Qing Xian grabbed Long Chen's arm and nodded at him. The old man's words were not without reason. The power of the primal chaos divine tribe outside was not something that they could fight against. When the teleportation array appeared in front of them, several groups of people had already disappeared. The entire teleportation array seemed to be wrapped in an azure light at all times. Once someone entered it, they would activate it with their divine power. Long Chun and the others stepped into the teleportation array without any suspense. When everyone opened their eyes again, they found that it was snowing heavily in the sky. On the boundless ice field, more and more humans and traders appeared. Many of them were crying tears of joy. One by one, they faced the east and stuck their heads to the cold ice field. As they looked out, on the entire ice field, only Long Chun and the other three remained standing still. Long Chun and the other three looked in the direction where everyone was kneeling. At the place where the sun rose, there were two statues that shot into the sky. Their bodies were covered in dazzling divine light, and there were illusions of the sun and the moon circulating. It was as if they were standing in another space, but also as if they were right in front of them. Long Chen was familiar with one of the statues. One statue was of the Sovereign Lord, and the other statue was of a person in a gray robe. Is this the so-called heaven fusion? It seems that he really thinks of himself as the Sovereign Lord's successor. Long Chen muttered to himself. As he spoke, he even felt disdain in his heart. If this heaven fusion was really as the rumors said, then so be it. However, after what happened in the 2U crypt, he felt that the heaven fusion god nation did not value the humans as much as the rumors said. This time, at least 1/3 of the humans died in the 2U crypt. Most of them were women and children. These people had the weakest cultivation, so it was impossible for them to rush to the teleportation array. Everyone knelt on the ice field. More and more humans and traitors appeared one after another. It was only when the Misfortune Gods group appeared that the teleportation array completely disappeared. After the Misfortune Gods group appeared, they immediately looked at Long Chen and the other three. There were tens of thousands of people on the ice field, but only the 4 of them did not kneel. The gray-robed people immediately snorted coldly and walked toward them. However, the leader stopped them. Under the gray robe, he looked deeply at Long Chen and the other 3 and said, "Let's get down to business first. Open the gate of the God Nation and bring them in." Only then did they ignore Long Chen and the other 3 and quickly flew toward the 2 statues in the east. In the end, they stopped in the distance. After the gray aura entered the space, a door of light appeared in front of them. Above the door of light were the words, "Heaven Fusion." Auspicious signs flowed within the door of light, and rosy clouds filled the sky. It was completely different from the ice field outside. After the door of light opened, the Misfortune Gods group signaled for everyone to enter. The sound of joy, the sound of tears of joy, the sound of pious prayers, more and more sounds filled the world, and Long Chen heard them. The door of light gradually closed, and the ice field returned to its peaceful state. It was as if no one had ever appeared here. Within the Heaven Fusion God Nation, the 2 statues still existed in the east, but this place seemed to have arrived in another space. It was not where they had been before. On the crisscrossing streets, there were all kinds of chaos gods and humans coming and going. The bustling scene made the humans and the traders who had just arrived unable to move forward. This was the land of freedom that they wanted to come to every day. Here, the chaos gods and humans could live peacefully. Everyone here believed in the Heaven Fusion God Nation. Heavenly God Misfortune's group disappeared into the picturesque buildings in just a few moments. The leader said, "Those 4 people don't seem to believe in the Heaven Fusion God Nation. Send them to the spirit region to live." Forget about that man. That old man from the Heavenly Destruction Gods group doesn't seem to be easy to deal with. His cultivation is not weak either. What are you afraid of? They have already been imprinted with the Heaven Fusion mark. How can they defy the Heaven Fusion God's order? Chapter 12:10. The survivors of the Heavenly Void God's bloodline all felt gratitude toward Long Chen. After Su Tianxi's death, it could be said that Long Chen had led them step by step to this place. They knew that Long Chen had altered the Heavenly Fusion mark. At this moment, they all wanted to persuade him to give up so that he wouldn't blaspheme the Heavenly Fusion mark. Long Chen bowed in return. However, his expression was ugly. These people's devotion to the Heavenly Fusion mark was deeply ingrained in their bones. It was impossible to change it. When the Heavenly Void God's bloodline saw that Long Chen didn't mention the Heavenly Fusion mark, they could only sigh and remain silent. The next day, everyone was arranged to go to their respective places. Everything in the Heavenly Fusion Divine Nation was in order. The relationship between the human race and the God race was indeed much better than in the outside world. Long Chen and the others were sent to the so-called Empty Spirit Land. The Empty Spirit Land was located in the westernmost part of the Heavenly Fusion Divine Nation. 2 separate spaces had been opened here. The inside of these 2 spaces was the so-called Empty Spirit Land. It was said that a type of empty spirit stone was mined here. Even if Long Chen and the others were idiots, they could still see the playful expressions in the eyes of the Heavenly Misfortune God's bloodline members. This was probably not a good place. Long Chen and the others entered the Empty Spirit Land one after another. It was just as they thought. This place was indeed located in a separate space. The chaotic divine power in this space was not much different from the outside world. However, the environment was incomparable. What entered his eyes was the barren Camel Hump Mountains. As they looked up, they couldn't see a single trace of green above the hundreds of mountains, let alone buildings. The Heavenly Destruction God's bloodline elder swept his gaze over this scene. He couldn't help but mutter to himself, "If I had known earlier, I would have knelt down. At least I could have found a better environment for my grandson." Upon hearing this, Long Chen couldn't help but feel speechless. This guy's head was filled with thoughts of his grandson. He wasn't a traitor himself, yet he had actually come to the Heavenly Fusion Divine Nation, which was filled with traitors. Long Chen looked around and smiled. "I think this place isn't necessarily worse than the outside world. At the very least, there shouldn't be too many restrictions." As he spoke, the 2 of them walked forward one after the other. Swoosh, swoosh. Streaks of light shot out from the barren camel humps one after another. These people stared at Long Chen's group of 4 for a while, and said in a deep voice, "Newcomers? Is it because he's also not very devout to Tianrong?" Long Chen and the others looked at each other and finally nodded. There were no more than 1,000 of them. 70% of them were from the chaotic divine race, and only 30% were from the human race. The clothes on their bodies were extremely tattered and dirty. This kind of appearance was somewhat different from their realm. The Chaos God clan was extremely talented. 70% of the people here were deity emperors, so they shouldn't have ended up like this. Long Chen looked at them and gradually frowned. He couldn't help but ask, "Why are you in such dire straits? And what's with this strange aura around you?" While Long Chen was speaking, the old man from the Heavenly Destruction God's bloodline also wore a solemn expression. He had come to the Heavenly Harmony Divine Nation to give his grandson an environment to grow up in. He didn't care whether he had to coexist with the despicable human race or worship some *T Heavenly Harmony. He really couldn't accept this place. He didn't want his grandson to grow up here. A tall and slender woman walked out from the crowd. Although her clothes were clean, they were somewhat tattered. There wasn't any dirt on her body, and her appearance was also quite extraordinary. Her eyes were a deep blue, and her long blue hair gave her a sense of lightness. She walked in front of Long Chen and the others and said softly, "Everyone, follow me into the mine. The next ethereal storm is coming." Ethereal storm? The expressions of Long Chen and the others became more and more unsightly. Where had they been sent to? The woman nodded at them, indicating that they didn't need to worry. Then, she led them to the first Camel Hump Mountain. Within the Camel Hump Mountain, when Long Chen and the others approached, they discovered that there were many mines on the mountain. The entrances of the mines were sealed with strange formations, isolating them from the outside world. More than 1,000 people entered the mountain from various crazy movement associations. A Chaos Divine tribe member with green scales grumbled, "The ethereal storms are becoming more and more frequent. I don't know if they will let us out in the end." "You still want to be let out? The Heavenly Harmony ceremony is in a year's time. I think it's better to stay here and live longer. I don't care about the Heavenly Harmony ceremony. As long as I can leave this place, I'll even lick the toes of the heavens." "Haha, you can even lick my toes." As they laughed and cursed, they had already reached the depths of the cave. The space inside the cave wasn't small. Many minds intersected to form many rooms, and the tables and chairs were also carved out of ore. The woman waved her hand, indicating for everyone to quiet down. This woman's cultivation was only at the first-order God-Emperor realm, but she seemed to have a unique majesty in this place. These Chaos Divine Tribe members listened to her every word. The woman glanced at Long Chen and the others, and her voice was like a spring breeze. This is the ethereal land. The mountains in this space are all made of ethereal iron ores. Our mission is to mine the ethereal iron ores and hand them in every 3 months. The reason why we are in such dire straits is because of the ethereal iron ores. As she spoke, she pushed the stone cup on the table towards Long Chen. Before Long Chen could make a move, the old man from the heavenly destruction god's bloodline reached out and caught the cup. Chaos energy surged from his body, and he was about to form Tao laws. Long Chen's eyes narrowed. The old man's expression changed drastically, and he cried out involuntarily, "You're saying that the ethereal iron ores can suppress the strength of a god-emperor?" He had originally planned to form a cup of tea with his Tao laws. It was such a simple task, but he couldn't do it. At this moment, they finally understood why the people here were so unkempt. These people had great strength, but they couldn't change the environment they lived in. This place was basically a prison that could imprison even a God-Emperor realm expert. The woman shook her head slightly when she saw the change in their expressions. She stretched out her hand and beckoned for the stone cup. "You should know why we're trapped here. It's difficult to get out of here." As the woman spoke, she pushed the 4 stone cups towards them. The cups were filled with tea. The 4 of them didn't look too good, but they still accepted the tea. They couldn't help but smile bitterly. Once upon a time. Chapter 12:11. Within the Ethereal Spirit Mine. This was a gigantic prison for laborers. They had been sent here because they didn't respect Tianrong or didn't trust him at all. The woman in the lead was called Lan Haixin. She was a descendant of the heavenly sea god's chaotic god tribe and the human race. If she wasn't here, everyone's lives would be even more difficult. Because of this, she had a high status here, so everyone was willing to listen to her. After learning about this, Long Chen's expression darkened. He couldn't think of any way to leave this place in a short period of time. The next day, the 4 of them had no choice but to join the group mining for ethereal spirit iron. According to Lan Haixin, the end of this month was the end of the month. If they couldn't hand over enough ethereal spirit iron, their lives would become even more difficult. Long Chen and the others couldn't accept this. Everyone here had extraordinary cultivation bases, and most of them were chaotic god tribe cultivators. Yet, they had been reduced to laborers. Rumbling booms rang out continuously within the Camel Peak Mountain. The ethereal spirit iron was extremely hard. Even though everyone had powerful cultivation bases, it was still extremely difficult for them. Of course, the main reason was that the ethereal spirit iron contained a special characteristic that could suppress their power. It was this special characteristic that prevented them from condensing nomological powers to change the environment. At this moment, Long Chen and the others could only become one of the miners. The only difference was that his mining speed was much faster than everyone else's. Although his halberd couldn't cut through the ethereal spirit iron like it was mud, it was much faster than using his own divine power to cut through the ethereal spirit iron. Day after day passed. Long Chen and Qin Xian, on the other hand, learned a lot about the Heavenly Harmony Divine Nation. What they cared about the most was the Heavenly Harmony Ceremony. The Heavenly Harmony Ceremony was held once every 10 years. At that time, the evil Tao would personally appear as the Heavenly Harmony Divine Nation. During the Heavenly Harmony Ceremony, the ancient sacred ruler's true legacy would appear. To Long Chen, this was undoubtedly the best news. If the ancient sacred ruler's true legacy could appear here, then there would definitely be a chaotic dragon bone. What he needed to do was to get within 10 steps of the chaotic dragon bone. He also had the remnant soul of a divine emperor with him. As long as he got close to the chaotic dragon bone, he would be able to take it for himself. Half a month passed in the blink of an eye. At the end of the month, Lon Haishin and everyone took out all the space spirit iron and placed it in one place. These iron stones were similar in size, and the ethereal aura they emitted was also similar. In 3 months, more than 1,000 people had only gained this much. Due to the special properties of the void spirit iron, it was impossible to store it in a storage ring. Even if it were to be transported out, it would require 3 people to transport it. The people who were going to be consigned this time were Long Chen, the old man from the heavenly destruction god's bloodline, and his grandson, Buzz. Noon. Sure enough, several gray-robed members of the heavenly god of misfortune's bloodline arrived. After a series of instructions, these people only left behind some vegetables, fruits, and more than 10 jars of water. Then, they signaled Long Chen and the others to carry the empty spirit iron ores and walk out. The 4 of them lifted the empty spirit iron stone that was as big as a small mountain. This void spirit iron stone was very strange. Just by carrying it on his back, he could feel his strength dissolving. If not for this, the people of the misfortune heavenly god's bloodline wouldn't need the people here to transport them every single time. They were not afraid of any resistance from the people here. The heavenly fusion imprint was their greatest authority. Everyone had to abide by the rules of this place. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Long Chen and the others struggled to carry the small mountain of iron stone and left the empty land. As they walked on the streets, the people around them looked at them with respect. It was as if they felt that mining the void spirit iron stone was a job that required a lot of dedication. Long Chen and the others couldn't help but smile bitterly. These people probably didn't know that the people in the empty land were all disrespectful to the heavenly fusion imprint. What do you plan to do? The old man from the heavenly destruction god's bloodline sent a message to Long Chen with an ashen face. Do you really plan to mine the void spirit iron stone here? Long Chen pondered for a moment, then replied, We don't have a choice right now. The people here are all believers of the heavenly fusion imprint. The old man snorted coldly and didn't say anything else. The void spirit iron stone was ultimately stored under the stone statue of the ancient sacred world lord. The aura emitted by the void spirit iron stone was actually completely absorbed by the statue. They were using the void spirit iron stone to nurture the statue of the ancient sacred world lord. When the Emperor Lord's remnant soul saw the statue at such a close distance, he smiled and said to Long Chen, I seem to have gained another fanatical believer. This statue was actually built with the power I left behind. The power of the void spirit iron stone was used to keep this power inside the statue. This statue has gradually gained some intelligence. Long Chen's pupils shrank when he heard this. The Emperor Lord's remnant soul's words clearly confirmed the existence of the primal chaos dragon bone here. The strange power within the statue must have originated from the primal chaos dragon bone. After the group placed the void spirit iron stone in the designated place, they were sent back to the empty land. Long Chen and the others had just taken a few steps when they saw an old man from the primal chaos god tribe. He wore a loose robe and walked toward the statue. When the people from the misfortune god's bloodline saw this old man, they all bowed and saluted. The scales on the old man's body burned like golden flames. He exuded an imposing aura that made one's heart palpitate. He brushed past Long Chen and then knelt respectfully in front of the statue of the ancient sacred world lord. His expression was extremely sincere. When the people from the misfortune god's bloodline saw the old man so close to the statue of the ancient sacred world lord, they did not say anything. They only urged Long Chen and the others to leave this place. Long Chen suddenly turned around and looked at the old man. His eyes shone brightly. He suddenly ignored the people from the misfortune god's bloodline and said to the old man, "Sir, can you hear me?" Impudent! The people from the misfortune god's bloodline changed their expressions. Then, their faces darkened. They all attacked Long Chen. They actually wanted to suppress Long Chen directly. The old man looked back in surprise and his gaze fell on Long Chen. He waved his hand and motioned for the gray-robed people from the misfortune god's bloodline to retreat. The gray-robed people originally wanted to suppress Long Chen directly, but they all retreated. From this, it could be seen. The old man had an extraordinary status in this place. The leader of the gray-robed people walked forward and bowed. Then, he said to the old man, "This person has just arrived in the Heavenly Harmony God Nation and was assigned to the empty land. He seems to be unwilling to accept this. Elder, please don't listen to his nonsense." The old man nodded and looked deeply at Long Chen. He said in a deep voice, "What do you want to say to me? You better think carefully. It's not too late to regret now." Although his tone was calm, it seemed like he was warning Long Chen. Chapter 12:12. When Long Chen suddenly called out to the old man, even Qing Xian couldn't help but feel shocked. Even though they wanted to observe the situation in the outside world, they had already promised Lan Haixin that they wouldn't cause any trouble. Why did Long Chen suddenly call out to the old man? The old man's status in the Heavenly Harmony Divine Nation wasn't low at all. If they angered him, the consequences would be unimaginable. It would only make their situation worse. The leader of the gray-robed men looked at Long Chen coldly and said, "Do you know who the person in front of you is? He's the previous Grand Elder of the Heavenly Light God's bloodline. A mere first-order God Emperor like you dares to spout nonsense here." The expression of the old man from the Heavenly Destruction God's bloodline changed drastically, and his eyes were filled with fear as he stared at the old man covered in golden scales. He had never thought that this old man would be the previous Grand Elder of the Heavenly Light God's bloodline. He had once heard that a high-ranking member of the Heavenly Light God's bloodline had betrayed the Heavenly Light God. He had thought that it was just a rumor, but who would have thought that he would meet this person today? This person's cultivation was at least at the sixth-order God Emperor realm. This kind of cultivation was enough to allow him to stand above the rest of the God race experts in the primal chaos domain. Long Chen ignored the words of the heavenly god of misfortune and the others. He stared at the old man and said, "I can help you solve the problem in your heart, eh?" As soon as these words left his mouth, the old man's face sank. The gray-robed man was also stunned, and he didn't know what Long Chen was talking about. The old man frowned as he stared at Long Chen. After a short while, he asked Long Chen in a low voice, "How do you know what I'm thinking?" Long Chen smiled but didn't say anything. The few members of the misfortune Heavenly Gods faction seemed to have suddenly regained their senses. The leader of the group couldn't help but ask, "Regarding that matter, Heavenly Rong is already prepared to personally pray to the ancient sacred world lord during the grand ceremony. I don't know where this person heard about this matter, but he actually dares to threaten us and spout nonsense. Even Heavenly Rong can't do anything about it. What can he do?" This person's words seemed to have calmed the old man down. He took a deep look at Long Chen. Suddenly, he shook his head and sighed. He waved his hand and said to Long Chen, "I won't pursue the matter of today. You may leave." As soon as he finished speaking, then, he turned around again and slowly knelt before the statue of the ancient sage's sector master. With a pious expression, he began to pray. The gray-robed man turned and glared at Long Chen. They had even thought of how to deal with Long Chen and let him know the rules of the Heavenly Harmony God Nation. Long Chen still had no intention of leaving. All of a sudden, he turned to the elderly man again and said, "I'm afraid you won't be able to wait until the Heavenly Integration Ceremony. I hope your prayers will be effective and you'll be able to persevere until that day comes." Long Chen's voice rolled out, and he did not even try to hide the threat in his voice. The gray-robed man was thoroughly enraged. Long Chen's actions today were simply too fearless. He did not take them seriously at all. Not only does this person not believe in the heavenly harmony God nation, but he probably has other problems as well. Attack and cripple him. The leader of the gray-robed men shouted. Everyone attacked Long Chen in unison. This time, they did not hold back at all. Their attacks were filled with killing intent. When the old man from the heavenly destruction god's bloodline saw this, his expression changed drastically. He had no intention of helping Long Chen. Instead, he stood in front of his grandson and put some distance between them. Although he had some friendship with Long Chen, it was not to the extent that he would sacrifice his life for him. This was the heavenly harmony god nation. Once they clashed with the heavenly misfortune god's bloodline, the consequences could be imagined. Long Chen's expression did not change at all. He continued to shout at the old man, "How many days do you have left to live? I'm afraid you know this better than I do. How many days do I have left to live?" When the old man heard this, the golden light on his body shone brightly like the scorching sun. He suddenly looked back, and his figure suddenly disappeared from where he stood. The light of the scorching sun in the sky seemed to solidify around him. Whoosh! The old man appeared 1 meter away from Long Chen out of thin air. A terrifying pressure forced Long Chen back. He even felt as if the origin divine power in his body was about to melt. Bang, bang, bang! The attacks of the gray-robed heavenly god of misfortune were completely nullified, and all of them were instantly sent flying backwards. Their clothes were actually blazing with golden flames. They hurriedly activated all the power in their bodies to protect their gray robes. They all bowed to the side, not daring to move at all. The old man's eyes stared fixedly at Long Chen as he said in a cold voice, "What exactly did you see? How did you know so much about this matter?" Long Chen looked at the old man, and a smile gradually appeared on his face. He said calmly, "Senior, when you walked past me, I sensed the enormous aura of darkness in your body." Hiss! When Long Chen said this, the old man's expression changed drastically. The way he looked at Long Chen changed, and he gradually became serious. Although there were many people in the heavenly fusion divine nation who knew about his problem, other than the Tao of misfortune, no one in the heavenly fusion divine nation knew the reason. Long Chen directly pointed out the reason. "You saw the source of the threat to my life in such a short time?" The old man still couldn't believe it, and he confirmed with Long Chen. Long Chen nodded and replied, "That power is gradually rushing into your sea of knowledge from your physical body and corroding your soul. The time you have left to live can be counted on one's fingers." The old man staggered back several steps. He didn't expect Long Chen to know so much. The heavenly misfortune god's bloodline was also dumbfounded. The old man's reaction had already proven Long Chen's words. This guy was clearly a first-order god emperor. Could he really solve the problem that even the heavenly fusion divine nation couldn't solve? "If you don't mind, please come with me." The old man took a deep breath, and his tone was much calmer. "If you can really solve the problem in my body, I will definitely reward you greatly." As the old man spoke, he signaled Long Chen to walk towards the center of the heavenly fusion divine nation. Long Chen nodded and then looked at the gray-robed man from the heavenly misfortune god's bloodline. He asked with a faint smile, "Can I bring the 3 of them with me? Can you make an exception?" The gray-robed man's eyes twitched. Even if he stopped them now, would it be of any use? "Since the elder is looking for you, you can go with them for a while." He suppressed the anger in his heart and replied. Long Chen and the others left with the old man. Chapter 12-13. Heavenly Harmony Divine Nation. The interior of this divine nation was as peaceful as the mortal world. Along the way, Long Chen saw people selling steamed buns, candied haws, and even people brandishing sword. It was hard to believe that this was the primal chaos domain controlled by the 9 primal chaos divine tribes. No matter what kind of person the self-proclaimed heavenly harmony divine nation was, the Pill Men tribe had really settled down here. This place was much better than the cruelty of the outside world. The old man from the heavenly light god's bloodline led Long Chen and the others through the streets. Many of the patrollers from the heavenly misfortune god's bloodline were respectful when they saw him. The old man owned a majestic palace in the most prosperous area of the heavenly harmony divine nation. The palace was made of golden jade and dazzling. After everyone entered the palace, the old man and Long Chen sat in the main hall. "Can you really get rid of the darkness aura in my body?" the old man asked Long Chen in a deep voice. Long Chen didn't say much. He only nodded. After a moment of silence, Long Chen continued, "I know you have something on you. Give it to me and I'll help you extend your life." At this point, Qing Xian and the old man from the heavenly destruction god's bloodline didn't even dare to breathe loudly. They never thought that Long Chen would be related to such an expert today. Right now, Long Chen wanted to obtain something from him. The old man's eyes narrowed. Long Chen's confidence made him believe Long Chen's words without a doubt. Of course, if Long Chen lied to him, he would be playing with his own life. "What do you want? How do you know what I have?" the old man asked in a deep voice. "The Radiance Holy Badge. I know it's on you." Long Chen seemed to have been prepared. In reality, the old man had attracted his attention because of the Radiance Holy Spirit. The Emperor Lord's remnant soul could clearly sense that this item was on the old man. The old man's expression became more and more serious. He seemed to be hesitating. After a long while, he said to Long Chen, "This item is on me. Since you know about it, you should know what it represents. If you can completely remove the dark aura from my body, I can give this to you." At this moment, the expression of the old man from the heavenly destruction god's bloodline, who had been silent all this time, changed completely. What Long Chen wanted was the Radiance Holy Spirit. This item was actually on this old man? This item was related to the foundation of the heavenly light god's bloodline. Long Chen pondered for a moment before saying, "Give this to me, and I'll go with you to the heavenly light god's ancestral land. Your life will be spared." As soon as he said this, the elderly man from the heavenly light god bloodline, who had been quite excited just a moment ago, instantly turned ashen. He stared at Long Chen and said coldly, "Are you trying to make fun of me? Since I'm here, I'm a traitor. Don't even mention bringing a first-order god emperor like you back to the clan. Even if I go back alone, I won't be able to walk out alive." Long Chen shook his head and said, "This is the only way. You just have to prepare yourself. If you give me the light creature in advance, I can guarantee your safety." The elderly man fell silent. His eyes seemed to be trying to see through Long Chen. Long Chen's words made it difficult for him to make a decision. If he really returned to the heavenly light god's ancestral land, it would be equivalent to hanging his life on his belt. When Long Chen saw that the elderly man was hesitating, he slowly stood up and walked out with Qing Xian. The elderly man didn't stop them. He seemed to have sunk into deep thought as he weighed the pros and cons in his heart. Long Chen and the others left. Soon, they returned to the empty spirit land. Outside the empty spirit land, the gray-robed heavenly god of misfortune and many other people were already waiting for them at the entrance. When the gray-robed heavenly god of misfortune saw Long Chen return, a mocking smile appeared on their faces. The leader of the gray-robed heavenly god of misfortune said in a low voice, "What? Didn't your wishful thinking work out? It's not bad that you managed to come back alive. Today we won't make things difficult for you. However, everyone in the empty spirit land will pay the price for your actions." These words made the faces of the other people in the empty spirit land turn ugly. Lan Haixin took a step forward and bowed to the gray-robed heavenly god of misfortune. She begged, "As the empty spirit land has been mining for more time, the empty spirit storms have become more and more frequent. I hope you can let us go." The gray-robed heavenly god of misfortune glanced at Long Chen, then moved toward Lan Haixin. He suddenly reached out and grabbed her chin. He smiled and said, "Why should we let you go?" Lan Haixin's face instantly turned pale. She quickly retreated and put some distance between herself and the gray-robed heavenly god of misfortune. When the other primal chaos gods in the empty spirit land saw this, their faces were filled with rage. They all rushed forward. Lan Haixin took a deep breath and stopped them. She said in a low voice, "We are willing to accept punishment." The gray-robed heavenly god of misfortune glanced at the thousands of people in the empty spirit land. He snorted and said, "Return all the resources we gave you. For the next 3 months, we will double the amount of empty spirit iron. Don't even think about getting next month's resources." After that, as the gray-robed heavenly god left, he brushed past Long Chun. He said playfully, "I'm sure you'll have a good time in the next 3 months." Long Chun frowned. He stared at the gray-robed heavenly god of misfortune but did not say anything. After the gray-robed heavenly god left, many of the primal chaos gods in the empty spirit land became hostile toward Long Chun. They did not think that Long Chun and the others would cause so much trouble when they just arrived. If it hadn't been for Lan Haixin's presence, there wouldn't have been so much more animosity. When he saw this, Long Chun could only smile bitterly and say nothing. However, he knew very well. The heavenly god of light's people would think for 3 days at most before they came looking for him. The old man's life could not wait much longer. At the very least, he could not wait until the heavenly melting ceremony. Long Chen's words were his last hope. Even if they were false, he would still try. "Sorry for the trouble." Qing Xian walked in front of Long Chen and apologized to Lan Haixin and the others. "What's the point of apologizing? You've been robbed twice, and you still have to hand over double the amount of empty spirit iron. You should be thanking the heavens if you don't cause trouble. It's already very difficult for us to live here. Don't even think about leaving this place. You still have the heavenly melting mark in your bodies. Since you're here, it doesn't matter what you do." Everyone complained incessantly. Lan Haixin could only smile bitterly and shake her head. She said to Long Chun and the others, "Come with me. Today's matter ends here. It's normal for you to want to leave this place." Chapter 12-14. Inside the Ethereal Land. After the incident with Long Chun and the others, almost everyone was busy. The double amount of ethereal spirit iron required them to mine twice as long. Not only that, the number of gray-robed people patrolling the area also increased. It was as if they couldn't get past them. Long Chun and the others became the focus of attention. For 3 days, the 4 of them didn't rest for a moment. Once they stopped mining, the gray-robed people would use a strange gray whip to take away part of the ethereal spirit iron. This part of the ethereal spirit iron wasn't counted in the amount that had to be handed over. For 3 days, even the old man from the heavenly destruction god's bloodline was suppressing his anger. Finally, when the sun set, the door to the ethereal land opened again. The old man from the heavenly light god's bloodline appeared in front of everyone. The gray-robed people from the misfortune god's bloodline were stunned. They hurriedly went up to greet him. The leader of the gray-robed people felt his heart skip a beat. 3 days ago, Long Chun and the others came back. He subconsciously thought that the matter had come to an end. That was why he suppressed Long Chun and the others. Now that the old man from the heavenly light god's bloodline had appeared again, he felt that something was wrong. As expected, the old man opened his mouth and said, "Find that person. I have something to ask him." Just as he finished speaking, the gray-robed people didn't respond. Long Chun and the others had already walked out of the mine. Long Chun smiled and said to the old man, 3 days. It seems like you've thought about it for a long time. However, I don't want that thing anymore." "Don't want it anymore?" The corner of the old man's eyes twitched. He frowned and stared at Long Chun. After a while, His gaze fell on a few gray-robed men. The gray-robed leader's body twitched, and started to tremble faintly. He hurriedly shouted to the old man, "Elder, don't listen to this person's nonsense. He's just a first-order god emperor. How can he save your life? Don't be deceived by him." The old man ignored him and looked at Long Chen again. He asked, "How do you want to deal with this?" As soon as he said this, the gray-robed leader's body went limp as he knelt before the old man. The fact that he was sent to look after the empty spiritual land showed that his status wasn't high. His cultivation was merely at the second-order god-emperor realm. If the old man really attacked, even if he killed him, Tianrong probably wouldn't blame him. This old man's status and strength were extraordinary. It was a pity. No matter how much Long Chen begged, the old man remained silent, as if he was waiting for Long Chen's answer. Long Chen stared at Grey Robe and suddenly said, "Kill, hiss." These two simple words were like a bolt from the blue in everyone's ears. The gray-robed leader's expression changed greatly, and his entire body turned cold. Pucci. Before he could continue to beg for mercy, his entire body began to melt like lava, and the aura of misfortune that was wreaking havoc all over his body completely dissipated. The old man stood where he was, as if he had not moved at all. He looked at Long Chen and muttered, "Are you satisfied now? When can we depart?" Long Chen stood up and gestured for him to walk out. Qing Xian quickly followed. The old man from the Destruction Clan didn't plan to follow. He had heard Long Chen's words that day. At this moment, he needed to find a way to leave the empty spiritual land and not go to the heavenly god of light's territory. Even though Long Chen's words were extravagant, he felt that this trip was simply a gamble. A traitor of the heavenly god of light's bloodline and a human. Such a combination, Chu Xia, was simply a mockery to the heavenly god of light's bloodline. Before they left, Long Chen looked at the rest of the gray-robed men and said indifferently, "I hope that when I return, no one will die like him." The gray-robed men no longer had their previous arrogance. They nodded like chickens pecking at rice. This old man didn't make a move himself, but he killed the misfortune god's bloodline as if he was cutting vegetables. They knew that as long as the news of this old man's death didn't spread, they couldn't rashly touch the people of the empty spiritual land. After Long Chen and the others left, the thousands of people in the empty spiritual land looked at each other. They were all shocked by the scene that had just happened. They originally thought that Long Chen only wanted to teach the gray-robed man a lesson. They never thought that he would use the help of the old man from the heavenly god of light's bloodline to kill him. When they thought of the enmity they felt towards Long Chen and the others in the past 3 days, they couldn't help but shake their heads and laugh at themselves. The other gray-robed men directly took out many more resources and handed them over to Lan Haixin. As for the amount of empty spirit iron, they directly reduced it by half. About an hour later, the gray-robed men finally left the empty spiritual land. Report this matter to the Heavenly Harmony Kingdom. That old man actually wants to take the elder and leave the Heavenly Harmony Kingdom. The gray-robed man's expression was incomparably grave. The old man's status was indeed extraordinary. Even though he left the Heavenly Harmony Kingdom, no one dared to stop him. Along the way, the old man wasn't afraid that Long Chen would escape. He led the two of them in a straight line towards the heavenly god of light's bloodline. It'll take at least half a month to reach the heavenly god of light's territory. During that time, we'll have to pass through a teleportation formation. The old man instructed the two of them. At this moment, the old man seemed to truly believe Long Chen's words. In reality, Long Chen was already prepared for this. More accurately, it was the remnant soul of the heavenly god of light. In this world, the only person who could save him was Long Chen, the successor of the Realm Lord. If the Heavenly Harmony ceremony could truly save him, they would have to use that strange statue of the Realm Lord. Senior, the reason you became a traitor is because of the power of darkness in your body, right? Long Chen asked as they traveled. He wasn't afraid of angering the old man. Although the old man's cultivation was strong, he definitely wouldn't attack the two of them. It's because of this power of darkness that I became a traitor. If there's anything you want to know, feel free to ask me. I'll tell you everything I know. However, if you lie, the two of you won't live for more than a breath of time. The old man's expression was calm, but his words were filled with confidence as he warned Long Chun. Long Chun didn't mind. "Senior, how should I address you?" He continued to ask. "Do you still have the sun-wheel divine crown of the heavenly god of light's bloodline?" The old man looked deeply at Long Chun. It seemed as if he was extremely surprised that he knew about the sun-wheel divine crown. This made him even more certain of his suspicions. Long Chun really did have the ability to save him. "You can call me Elder Su. I also want to know why you insist on having me bring you to the heavenly god of light's territory. Even if I give you the heavenly god of light's holy badge, are you sure you'll be able to walk out alive?" The old man stared at Long Chun with a grave expression. Chapter 12-15. Half a month passed in the blink of an eye. Long Chun, Qing Xian, and Qing Xian were about to arrive at the heavenly light divine race's territory. Along the way, Long Chun and Qing Xian finally witnessed the strength of a sixth-order god emperor. When Elder Su brought them to use the teleportation array, they directly swept through a small stronghold of the Chaos Divine race. In the end, the Chaos Divine race could only watch as they left. It wasn't that they were helpless against the sixth-order god emperor, but they weren't willing to risk their lives for a teleportation array. Elder Su seemed to have some reputation in the Chaos realm. The heavenly light divine race was like 3 blazing suns in the sky. Within each blazing sun was a majestic palace. The corners of the palaces were distinct, and they emitted a divine radiance. Endless auspicious energy flowed through them. Among the 9 Chaos Divine races in the Chaos realm, the Heavenly Light Divine race's combat strength was probably in the top 3. It was even possible that they were the strongest. Elder Su gradually slowed down. The expression on his face was unprecedentedly solemn. He had once thought that he would never see the Heavenly Light Divine race again, but he never thought that he would be standing in front of them today. The darkness energy in his body couldn't be dissolved. Perhaps this was also his final destination, right? He turned around and stared at Long Chun. "Radiance Holy Spirit, I'll hand it over to you now. Our lives are in your hands now." He couldn't help but shake his head as he spoke. The Radiance Holy Spirit was an ancient inheritance of the Heavenly Light Divine race. It was rumored that before the Heavenly Light Divine race's relationship with the World Master, the Emperor Lord had personally refined it. Unfortunately, ever since the Heavenly Light Divine race was sealed in the Chaos realm, the Radiance Holy Spirit had completely covered its former glory. When he had betrayed the Heavenly Light Divine race, he had stolen it in order to protect his family. He had used it to threaten the Heavenly Light Divine race. So many years had passed. The Heavenly Light Divine race had been sending messages asking him to return the Radiance Holy Spirit, but they hadn't released Elder Su's family members. Long Chun reached out and took the Radiance Holy Spirit. In the past half a month, Elder Su seemed to be certain that he would die, and he had told him everything he knew. Long Chun looked at him and said, "If your family is still alive, let's take them away today." The creature of light had already fallen into his hands. After saying that, he led Qing Xian to the front. Qing Xian couldn't help but pull Long Chun's sleeve. She seemed to be very worried. The old man was at a loss for words. In the end, he shook his head and smiled bitterly as he followed behind them. However, no matter how much preparation he had made, he was still a little afraid of returning to this old place. The 3 of them walked one after the other, gradually flying towards the 3 brilliant suns. When one got closer, one would discover that there were more than just 3 majestic palaces within the 3 blazing suns. There were also 3 indomitable virtual gods. If the three virtual gods did not get close, they would not be able to detect it. Upon closer inspection, one would discover that the dantions of these three faux gods were three blazing suns. Rumble! Streaks of golden light streaked across the sky from the majestic palace within the three blazing suns. The living beings of the heavenly light god bloodline instantly surrounded them. The moment these people appeared, all of their gazes landed on Elder Su. The leader of the group shouted, "I didn't expect the news to be true. Guangsu, you actually dared to return. I originally thought that you would be a coward in that so-called heavenly harmony divine nation for the rest of your life." While they were talking, the divine light around them had already reached the heavens. The golden light that flowed around their bodies seemed to be able to ignite the air as they emitted a terrifying temperature. Elder Su remained silent. He didn't dare to say anything at this moment. He looked at Long Chen. Even though his cultivation was higher, the heavenly light god bloodline wouldn't let him leave under these three blazing suns. There was a 6th order god emperor, 3 5th order god emperors, and 5 3rd order god kings in this group. This kind of strength was enough to easily suppress him. Of course, other than Elder Su, the rest of them didn't even put Long Chen and Qing Xian in their eyes. In their eyes, Long Chen's strength was really not enough. When they saw that Elder Su didn't have any intention of resisting, they secretly thought that he knew his own limits. Thus, they prepared to directly take him down. "Everyone, please wait." At this time, Long Chen stepped forward. Everyone frowned and looked at Long Chen. They couldn't help but sneer. The leader of the group said casually, "Are you Guangsu's illegitimate son? Kill him for me first." Just as he finished speaking, everyone released a powerful pressure towards Long Chen. There were a total of 9 stages in the Divine Emperor realm. Every stage was further divided into 9 layers. Long Chen was merely a 1st order god emperor. In their eyes, he wasn't even on the same level as them. The surging light aura almost materialized as it fell on Long Chen. This strange aura caused their souls to tremble. As long as they came into contact with it, they would definitely die. Buzz. Long Chen's lips curled into a smile. He waved his right hand and waves of golden light revolved around it, blocking everyone's attack. This scene completely stunned everyone. Elder Su was also stunned. He exclaimed, "You actually erased their light aura. Can you really?" His voice came to an abrupt stop. It was as if he didn't want others to know that Long Chen could use the light Holy Spirit. At this moment, waves of shock surged in his heart. Even though Long Chen had asked him for the light Holy Spirit, he had never imagined that Long Chen could use it. No one in the entire heavenly light god bloodline could use it. How could he do it? Elder Su looked at Long Chen with a solemn expression. He seemed to have thought of something. The heavenly light god bloodline members surrounding them were also stunned. No one had expected this. Long Chen merely waved his hand and dispersed their attacks. "What's going on? Who are you? Why do I sense the aura of the heavenly light god bloodline in your every move? Is this bastard a bastard born from Guangsu and a despicable human? Blasphemy! This is blasphemy to the heavenly light god bloodline." After a brief moment of shock, everyone was filled with suspicion and endless rage. At this moment, everyone seemed to have forgotten that their target was Guangsu. They actually attacked Long Chen together. Waves of destructive power transformed into a mighty force that blotted out the sky and crashed down on Long Chen. With such a short-range attack, it was clear that they were planning to kill all 3 of them. "Summon your heavenly light god bloodline's leader." Long Chen's expression remained unchanged as he murmured. As he spoke, he grabbed at the air with both hands. It was as if he was moving the entire sky. Endless light aura started to boil. The void gods outside the 3 blazing suns started to tremble. Streaks of golden light fell from the sky as if they were tangible. Chapter 12:16. The golden cage suppressed all the members of the heavenly light god bloodline. This scene caused everyone to be shocked. The heavenly god of light even felt a wave of anger from the depths of their souls. A human was actually mobilizing the aura of light in the chaos to suppress them. But why were their attacks being redirected by the three burning sun virtual gods? This was completely inexplicable. Ask your leader to come out. Long Chen spoke again. At this moment, the way they looked at Long Chen had completely changed. Without any hesitation, they all sent out their divine thoughts. As expected, in just a few breaths, hundreds of divine lights swept through the air. The person in the lead was like a heavenly god. Seeing this scene, Elder Su couldn't help but take a few steps back. The heavenly godlike middle-aged man was several meters tall. His expression was arrogant, and his entire body seemed to be condensed by golden brilliance. He looked around, and with a wave of his hand, he removed the light cage around everyone. Rumble. As this person raised his hand, endless killing intent instantly fell on Long Chen from all directions. Your Excellency, it's best if you don't attack. Instead of retreating, Long Chen took a step forward. At the same time, the three burning suns started to tremble. The three burning sun virtual gods seemed to come alive, and they started to transform from illusion to reality. Their illusory eyes slowly opened. Crack, crack, crack. The endless aura of light instantly cracked as if it was real, and then it turned into nothingness and rolled back. The holy badge behind Long Chen floated up and down, hovering 3 inches above his head. Light Sacred Badge. You're actually using the Light Sacred Badge. Stop, stop, what are you trying to do? At this moment, whether it was the heavenly godlike middle-aged man in the lead or the many elders beside him, their expressions changed drastically. Long Chen was actually using the Light Sacred Badge to mobilize the heavenly god of light's power. At this moment, Long Chen seemed to have become a member of the heavenly god of light's bloodline. His entire body was wrapped in endless aura of light, and golden brilliance flowed around him. He was incomparably divine. After Long Chen waved his hand, the 3 burning sun virtual gods finally stopped moving. I came here today for 2 things. The first is to use the light spring to save Elder Su's life. The second is to make a trip to the Sea of Light Stone Forest. Long Chen said. The heavenly light god's patriarch furrowed his brows. He stared at the light creature above Long Chen's head, and after a moment of silence, he finally said, The spring of light is also in the Sea of Light Stone Forest. If you are not afraid of death and want to go in and take a look, we will not stop you. But before you leave, you must return the Radiance Sacred Badge to my clan. The Radiance Sacred Badge had been completely silent ever since they broke off their relationship with the ancient Saint World Lord. The reason why they had always wanted to find it was because they were afraid that they would encounter something like this one day. This item was directly related to the foundation of the entire Heavenly Light God bloodline. Long Chen nodded his head and agreed. You guys are worrying too much. After the fall of the ancient Saint World Master, the power within the Radiance Holy Spirit has long dissipated. After using it this time, it will completely collapse. At that time, if you want it, I will give it to you. His words caused the heavenly light god's patriarch's eyes to twitch uncontrollably. If Long Chen's words were true, if the Radiance Holy Spirit was going to collapse, then what was the point of them coming here? However, Long Chen, who was going to use the Radiance Holy Spirit for the last time, had strangled them by the throat. Guang Su knows where the Sea of Light Stone Forest is better than us. Do as you wish. The heavenly light god's patriarch was also unable to restrain his anger. If news of what had happened today were to spread, it would be a great humiliation. Long Chen, 2 despicable humans, and a traitor of the heavenly light god bloodline, had actually managed to suppress the heavenly light god bloodline just like that. They could only suffer in silence. However, Long Chen couldn't be bothered to pay attention to their ugly expressions. Instead, he looked toward Elder Su. However, at this moment, Elder Su's expression was extremely ugly. He looked toward Long Chen and said in a hoarse voice, "Do you really have to use the spring of light to save me?" Long Chen nodded, and his brows gradually furrowed. The strange power of darkness within Elder Su's body was the source of corrosion. If they wanted to save him, they had to use the spring of light to completely dispel the power of darkness. In reality, even if they were in the heavenly harmony divine nation, using the power of the Realm Lord within the divine statue of the Realm Lord would be the same as what he was doing now. If they wanted to use the spring of light, they had to enter the heavenly light god bloodline's territory. If they wanted to enter the heavenly light god bloodline's territory, they had to activate the Radiant's Holy Spirit. However, only the Realm Lord of the ancient sacred world could activate the Radiant's Holy Spirit. Of course, the current Elder Su couldn't wait for the Heavenly Harmony ceremony a year later. Long Chen was currently using the Radiant's Holy Spirit to bring him to the Heavenly Light God bloodline. Elder Su suddenly smiled bitterly and shook his head. It was as if he had lost all of his strength. "Let's go. Let's leave this place. Just ask them to hand over my family. I don't want my life." "Don't want it?" Long Chen and Qing Xian were completely dumbfounded upon hearing his words. On the other hand, the members of the Heavenly Light God bloodline all sneered, as if they had already expected such an outcome. Long Chen pondered for a moment, and his expression became serious. The Spring of Light is located within the Sea of Light Stone Forest. What exactly is hidden within the Sea of Light Stone Forest that makes you so afraid that you would rather die than enter it again? The Sea of Light Stone Forest. Within the primal chaos domain, the birthplace of all humans. It was the burial ground of countless experts from the 9 great primal chaos divine tribes. What exactly is hidden here? In fact, this was another reason why Long Chen had come to the Heavenly Light God bloodline. He wanted to see if this place really had the opportunity to save Yi Hailan. At this moment, he felt that he was being a bit reckless. The Sea of Light Stone Forest was so terrifying that even an expert like Elder Su didn't have the courage to fight before his death. Long Chen pondered for a moment. In the end, he let out a long breath and said to Elder Su in a deep voice, "This trip to the Sea of Light Stone Forest isn't just to save your life. I also have a reason to go. The power of the Spirit of Light can only be used once. If there is any danger, we still have a chance to retreat." Elder Su's body trembled slightly. His eyes were filled with fear towards the Sea of Light Stone Forest. His appearance caused the remnant soul of the Divine Emperor in Long Chen's Sea of Consciousness to be filled with confusion and curiosity. He had personally sealed the 9 great primal chaos divine tribes in this place. What kind of power could give birth to humans in this place? The Sea of Light Stone Forest originated from the Heavenly Light God bloodline, but now even the Heavenly Light God bloodline's expression changed. It was extremely strange. Elder Su took a deep look at Long Chen. Then, he looked at the Holy Light Spirit above his head. He seemed to have made some kind of decision. Chapter 12:17. Upon hearing Elder Su's words, Long Chen nodded slightly. At this moment, Elder Su should have some guesses about his identity. Otherwise, he probably wouldn't have entered the Sea of Light Stone Forest even if he died today. After the two of them decided to enter the Sea of Light Stone Forest, the entire Heavenly Light God bloodline started to sneer coldly. The leader seemed to be too lazy to argue with Long Chen and the other two. He immediately opened up a path for them to walk towards the center of the blazing sun. They looked at Long Chen and the others walking inside as if they were looking at a few dead people. Inside the blazing sun wheel, many members of the Heavenly Light God's bloodline turned pale with shock when they heard that the two of them were going to enter the Sea of Light Stone Forest. "Isn't that Elder Guangsu? He actually came back and wants to go to the Sea of Light Stone Forest. How many years has it been since someone entered the Sea of Light Stone Forest? He should know better than anyone how dangerous it is. Shameful traitors and despicable humans, let them die in the sea of light stone forest. Sounds of discussion could be heard everywhere. Long Chen also understood that Elder Su was originally an elder who lived in the sea of light stone forest. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Elder Su brought Long Chen and the others into the blazing sun halo. They passed through the majestic palace and flew towards the distant sky. The empty sky became brighter and brighter as they moved forward. The entire world seemed to be filled with a brilliance that far exceeded that of the outside world. This place was like a white sea floating in the air. After Long Chen and the others entered the Sea of Light, they turned around to look. The location of the heavenly light god's bloodline was as dark as night. However, the members of the heavenly light god bloodline looked at them in a completely different light. At this moment, it was as if they were in an ocean of dazzling light. The resplendent brilliance caused the brightness of this place to be incomparable to the outside world. The heavenly light god bloodline's patriarch said in a low voice, "Open the heavenly light canopy. Let's see how long they can last. We can also see if this person's words are true. If the radiant sacred badges don't crumble after their deaths, we must retrieve them from the Sea of Light Stone Forest at all costs." The elders behind him turned around and left. Not long after, beams of light shot out from the majestic palace and landed in the sky in front of everyone. On the screen was the scene of Long Chen and the others. These images were not clear, as if they had been greatly disturbed. As Long Chen and the others went deeper, the image became more and more blurry, but they could still see about 70 to 80% of it. The Sea of Light Stone Forest is a mysterious place within the heavenly light god's bloodline. However, this place is only a training ground for First-Order God Emperors. But all of this began to change as the human race walked out of it. Elder Su's voice seemed to tremble as he recalled the past. Before he could explain to Long Chen in detail what had happened to this place, Long Chen suddenly stopped. A strong spatial storm gradually appeared in the light in front of them. Long Chen used the radiant Holy Spirit badge in his hand to stabilize himself. Even so, many scenes before his eyes began to change rapidly. Thud thud. The moment these scenes appeared, Long Chen's group and Elder Su couldn't help but take a few steps back. Dozens of ghosts appeared in front of them. These ghosts were condensed from different colors of light, but they were also filled with unprecedented death chi. If that was all, Long Chen and the old man wouldn't be so shocked. These ghosts looked almost identical to the primal Chaos Divine race. They were all members of the 9 Chaos Divine tribes who had died in the Chaos Domain. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Before the two of them could move, they felt an unprecedented pressure. Endless attacks came at them like a violent storm. Long Chen and the old man's expressions changed drastically. They quickly used their God Force to form a screen of light to block the dense attack. The radiant Holy Spirit badge sprinkled endless light, and auspicious waves wrapped around the three of them. A trace of fear appeared in Elder Su's eyes, and he said in a low voice, "These ghosts are members of the various Chaos Divine tribes who died here later. The strongest among them is only a Third-Order God Emperor, but their strength is far more terrifying than when they were alive. We are still 15 minutes away from the Spring of Light. As we go deeper, the ghosts that appear will become more terrifying. There are even ghosts that didn't die here." Long Chen used the radiant Holy Spirit badge to block the attack. Although the scene before them was vast, it wasn't unstoppable. He tried to use the radiant Holy Spirit badge to attack the ghosts in front of them. These ghosts were obviously no match for the radiant Holy Spirit badge, and they were crushed into powder in an instant. However, in a few breaths' time, another ghost that looked exactly the same appeared in front of them. "Let's go." Long Chen frowned and ignored the ghost. He signaled Elder Su to follow him. He gradually understood why the various Chaos Divine tribes had lost so many experts in the past. The ghosts here couldn't be destroyed. Moreover, this was only the periphery of the sea of light stone forest. If they really entered, what kind of terrifying ghosts would they encounter? The three of them went deeper. No matter how the ghosts attacked, even with their third-order God-Emperor cultivation, they couldn't break through the radiant Holy Spirit badge's power. The radiant Holy Spirit badge was forged by the Realm Lord for the Heavenly Light God's bloodline. Now that they were in the depths of the Heavenly Light God's ancestral land, its power was obvious. The members of the Heavenly Light God's bloodline could clearly see that they had ignored the first wave of ghosts. Several elders couldn't help but sigh. This radiant Holy Spirit badge is practically made for our Heavenly Light God's bloodline. Without this item, they would have to pay a heavy price just now. They can't really enter the stone forest with the radiant Holy Spirit badge, right? The leader of the Heavenly Light God's bloodline sneered. Have you forgotten about that battle? Let's not talk about the Sea of Light stone forest for now. It's already his fortune to be able to set foot in the stone forest. The 9 great ghost slaves that guarded the stone forest's periphery slaughtered many experts from the 9 chaos divine tribes. Many elders nodded their heads, and there was a hint of fear on their faces. They had all experienced that battle before. The so-called 9 great ghost slaves were actually the deceased members of the 9 chaos divine tribes. All 9 of them had once enjoyed a glorious era. Every single one of them possessed unfathomable power. Even when the 9 Chaos Divine tribes joined forces, they only managed to defeat 3 ghost slaves and enter the stone forest's periphery. If they wanted to reach the Spring of Light, they had to defeat at least 1 ghost slave. How easy was it to defeat a ghost slave? On the other side, Long Chen and Elder Su continued to walk deeper into the stone forest. The ghosts behind them were still following them like maggots. Chapter 12:18. In the Stone Forest. All the stone forests were made up of strange crystal pillars. These pillars floated in the sea of light in the sky. Each pillar seemed to contain endless brilliance, as if they were condensed by the aura of light. The ring-shaped stone forest stretched out horizontally. Long Chen and the others had only reached the edge of one side. Elder Su didn't know why Long Chen was staring at the center of the stone forest. He focused his gaze, but could only see a vast expanse of white chaos and the stone forest. Thump, thump, thump. Long Chen's expression didn't change, but he slowly walked toward the center of the stone forest. "Young master, what did you see? What's wrong with you?" Qing Xian, who was standing beside him, hurriedly pulled him back. Elder Su's expression also changed greatly. He only felt that Long Chen's mind had been stolen. Long Chen's expression returned to normal the moment he was pulled back by the two. Seeing their doubtful and worried expressions, he asked, "Didn't you see the scene in the stone forest? There's someone in the center." The depths of his eyes were filled with unprecedented brilliance and doubt. He had actually seen Yi Halen's figure in the center of the stone forest. That feeling was extremely mysterious. The two looked at each other and shook their heads. They felt that this place was extremely strange. Elder Su pondered for a moment and replied, "This place not only gives birth to ghosts, but also things with inner demons. Maybe you just saw an illusion of your own inner demon." Long Chen frowned and pondered for a moment before shaking his head. He couldn't be wrong. That was indeed Yi Halen's figure, and it definitely wasn't an illusion. Moreover, he had the Emperor's remnant soul in his mind. The Emperor's remnant soul could naturally distinguish whether it was an illusion created by an inner demon. At this moment the Emperor seemed to be puzzled. Long Chen took a deep breath. He knew that even if he wasn't mistaken, that wasn't the real Yi Halan, because he still had Yi Halen's origin in his hands. However, this still gave him a glimmer of hope, the hope of reviving Yi Halan in advance. The humans who walked out of this place had their own consciousness, and they were indeed beings with soul origins. Let's continue. Long Chen's heart was filled with doubt and shock. What was hidden here? could actually give birth to life out of thin air. Why did Yi Halen's figure appear in the stone forest? Could it be that someone here knew about him? Seeing that Long Chen had returned to normal, Old Su and Old Li followed him once again. They patrolled. Elder Su's expression suddenly turned ugly. He smiled bitterly and said, "Looks like my luck isn't good." The spring of light didn't extend beyond the stone forest area. "You should leave. Perhaps this is my final destination." Elder Su didn't want to go deeper. However, Long Chen said solemnly, "Even if you want to die, I still want to enter the stone forest to take a look." Long Chen continued to go deeper, and Qing Xian followed him without hesitation. It was as if no matter how dangerous the path ahead was, as long as Long Chen dared to go, she wouldn't be afraid. Elder Su's face changed greatly, and he hurriedly flew in front of Long Chen to stop him. He said, "You must not enter the stone forest. Once someone sets foot in the stone forest, the 9 great ghost slaves will appear." The 9 great ghost slaves are strange things that appeared after the mutation of this place. They are the ancestors of the 9 great chaotic divine clans who died. Any one of these 9 people was once the strongest in their generation. They are definitely not people you and I can deal with. Even with my cultivation, I'm afraid I can't take a hit from them. The 9 great ghost slaves? Long Chen paused for a moment, and then he continued to walk forward. He held the halberd in his hand, and the radiant holy badge was activated to the extreme. Rumble. The radiant holy badge flashed. The 3 blazing sun hollow souls of the heavenly light god's bloodline trembled again, and the center of the blazing sun hollow soul started to shrink at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the end, it transformed into a light body and entered the blazing sun hollow soul. The light body formed by the hollow souls flew toward the sea of light stone forest where Long Chen was at. The expressions of all the heavenly light gods' bloodline changed greatly, and their leader frantically activated an unpredictable technique, causing countless threads to fall toward the light body. The light body formed by the hollow souls was no different from a human body. It was formed by dazzling light, and it seemed to contain endless power. This was one of the trump cards of the heavenly light god's bloodline. The light body formed by the hollow souls flew into the sea of light stone forest, and the entire blazing sun hollow soul rapidly fell toward the ground. A scene that shocked everyone appeared. The sea of light stone forest was originally located within the blazing sun hollow soul, and it was located behind the majestic palace. Now that the blazing sun hollow soul had left, the entire independent space of the blazing sun hollow soul had fallen to the ground. However, the sea of light stone forest still didn't move. The entire sea of light stone forest had left the original space of the blazing sun hollow soul, and it still remained in the same place. Countless members of the heavenly light god's bloodline flew out from the majestic palace on the ground. The entire space of the blazing sun hollow soul had already lost its luster. In the sky, only 2 of the 3 blazing suns were left, and the sea of light stone forest had replaced them. Outside the sea of light stone forest, the sea of light stone forest didn't weaken. Instead, it became even more dazzling, as if it was about to overshadow the blazing sun hollow soul. The entire sky had turned white. When the heavenly light god's bloodline leader saw the hollow souls flying toward the sea of light stone forest, he spat out a mouthful of blood. "I'm going to make you suffer the most terrifying punishment in this world." He was truly enraged. The 3 blazing sun hollow souls of the heavenly light god's bloodline carried the 3 blazing sun hollow souls, and the majestic palace within the blazing sun hollow soul was their territory. If the heavenly light god's bloodline were to enter the sea of light stone forest, their cultivation would increase by leaps and bounds. This was also the reason why the heavenly light god's bloodline was ranked among the top of the 9 chaotic divine clans in the primal chaos realm. He never would have thought. Long Chen actually used the hollow souls of Light Stone Forest to force the Blazing Sun hollow souls to leave the Sea of Light Stone Forest. The elders were still standing in front of the light screen. The scene on the light screen had already become extremely blurry, but they could still see a trace of it. An elder called out to the heavenly light god's bloodline leader and said in a deep voice, They seem to be planning to enter the Sea of Light Stone Forest. The 9 ghost slaves are about to appear. He wants to use our Blazing Sun hollow souls to fight against the ghost slaves. As soon as he said this, the heavenly light god's bloodline leader's expression changed drastically, and he shouted, This person is trying to drag us down with him before he dies. We definitely can't let him attract the other 2 Blazing Sun hollow souls. Otherwise, the territory of the heavenly light god's bloodline will never be able to survive. Although he said this, the surrounding elders all looked at each other and smiled bitterly. The Blazing Sun hollow souls possessed unfathomable might. Chapter 12:19. The Heavenly God of Light's Bloodline. The majestic palace within the 3 scorching suns hadn't moved for a long time. Now, the void souls outside the 2 scorching suns started to tremble. They retreated rapidly with the scorching suns and the majestic palace. In the Sea of Light Stone Forest, the aura of light in front of Long Chen was extremely dense. The light figure formed by the void god was less than half a meter away from him. The 3 of them had extremely serious expressions. They finally stepped into the edge of the stone forest. Buzz. As expected, the moment the 3 of them stepped into the stone forest, an aura that was completely different from the aura of light appeared from all directions. 100 meters away, there was a primal Chaos God clan standing on a pillar of light. This person was covered in scales and bathed in blood. An extremely terrifying aura was wreaking havoc around him. His eyes, which were dripping with blood, were pitch black like a bottomless abyss. Boom, boom, boom. There were a total of 9 chains tied to his back. The aura of light in all directions was completely crushed around him. He was simply like an evil spirit that rushed out from hell. The end of those chains might be connected to the netherworld. Thump, thump. The moment this person appeared, Elder Su couldn't help but retreat. His face instantly turned pale. He pointed at this person and said with a trembling voice, He was the strongest person in the heavenly god of light's bloodline. If he wasn't trapped in the primal chaos domain, I'm afraid he would have already stepped into the legendary titled Emperor realm. He died in the Netherworld God Clan's abyss. The entire abyss has been completely crushed. At this moment, Long Chen finally knew why Elder Su was so terrified of this place. He was even willing to die rather than step into the Sea of Light Stone Forest. This place was truly strange to the extreme. This person who had died countless years ago actually appeared here. Buzz. Long Chen took a deep breath and held the halberd in his hand tightly. He knew that it was probably impossible to enter the Sea of Light Stone Forest today. However, the spring of light was already faintly visible. He wasn't willing to retreat just like that. Long Chen shouted at Elder Su and rushed toward the spring of light. At the same time, the scorching sun void soul also rushed toward Gui Nu at an extremely fast speed. Elder Su stared blankly for a moment, but since things had already come to this point, he didn't hesitate to follow closely behind Long Chen. In the blink of an eye, the 3 of them were already standing at the edge of the spring. The spring of light was condensed with an extremely dense aura of light. It was not a real river. Long Chen did not even look at the ghost slave in the sky. The radiance Holy Spirit above his head had already sprinkled its radiance into the light spring. The surging aura of light within the spring of light swept out, intersecting into strange patterns that fell towards Elder Su. Boom, boom. The moment the spring of light covered Old Su, streams of dark aura were quickly squeezed out from his body. Elder Su's body was drenched in cold sweat, as if he hadn't even released his own divine power. His gaze was fixated on the distance, not caring that the light spring had already entered his body and was dispelling the dark aura for him. Long Chen and Qing Xian's faces froze. The scorching sun hollow soul had already been swallowed by the ghost slave. Ghost slave's dark eyes stared at them, and a cold smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. The next moment, he had already disappeared, leaving only the pitch-black chains whistling in the air. Long Chen and the others' complexions changed greatly. The Radiant's Holy Spirit and the halberd were instantly urged to the extreme. The power of this object was already beyond their imagination. Crackle! Crackle! The dark aura in Elder Su's body had already dissipated. The two of them revealed a crazed expression, intending to use all their strength to block this attack and seek a chance of survival. The Radiant's Holy Spirit's existence made them not completely without a chance of survival. But the three of them did not expect a scene to occur. Ghost Slave's body unexpectedly stopped 100 zhang in front of them. The chains that seemed to come from the abyss were suppressing his movement. Retreat! The three of them did not have time to think, quickly retreating out of the stone forest. Ghost Slave's roar was heard. The moment they retreated out of the stone forest, Ghost Slave completely disappeared without a trace, as if he had never appeared. The three of them were now standing in the sea of light, looking back at the stone forest. They all had a lingering fear, as if they had just survived a disaster. Why did Ghost Slave suddenly stop attacking? Who was suppressing Ghost Slave with the chains? Why would an expert of a glorious era be willing to be a Ghost Slave? Long Chen suddenly felt a strange power coming from within the stone forest. This power instantly engulfed his entire body, then disappeared without a trace. Someone here has discovered my existence. The Emperor Master's remnant soul suddenly spoke, his voice filled with doubt and shock. Long Chen sucked in a breath of cold air, and without any hesitation, he brought Elder Su and Qing Xian out of the stone forest. This sea of light stone forest was truly too strange and evil. It was truly inconceivable that the Emperor Master's remnant soul's existence could be sensed. They did not stop, and with their fastest speed, they left the sea of light stone forest and the heavenly light goddess's bloodline. The three of them kept their mouths shut about what happened within the stone forest. Long Chen asked the Emperor Master's remnant soul in his mind, and the only answer he received was actually a guess. That was, an existence comparable to a titled Emperor Master had been born within the primal chaos domain. The Emperor Master's remnant soul did not know why this item was able to capture people who had disappeared for a long time. This was the same reason why those humans were born here. Whether it was creating humans out of thin air or refining people of the past into ghost slaves, it was not that the ancient saint world lords were unable to do it, but that a titled Emperor Master was unable to do it. Once one reached the Realm Lord realm, one would possess omnipotent power at the ancient saint realm and could even reconstruct living beings. The Emperor Master's remnant soul was certain that there was absolutely no one in the ancient saint divine world who had crossed the final barrier to become a realm lord. None of this could be explained. In the end, Long Chen could only shake his head, and temporarily treat the existence hidden here as a titled Emperor Master's existence. This kind of existence was not something he could come into contact with at the moment. Several hours later, everyone was still speeding away, and the radiant sacred badge above their heads had already shattered inch by inch, turning into flying debris. At this moment, Elder Su seemed to have truly calmed down. He stopped in his tracks and bowed deeply to Long Chen. This bow had nothing to do with his cultivation level, but rather it was to thank Long Chen for risking his life to save his life. On the other hand, he was also almost certain that Long Chen was the true Realm Lord's successor, otherwise, how could Long Chen be able to activate the Radiant Sacred Badge to such an extent? The Radiant Sacred Badge had been in his possession for too long, and he knew better than anyone else the conditions to use it. After the bow, Numerous transparent, radiant crystals appeared in Elder Su's hands. He handed the crystals to Long Chen and said solemnly, "These crystals were brought out when the radiant spring's power rushed into my body. Please accept them." Chapter 12:20. In the Sea of Light Stone Forest. Endless laughter rang out from within the stone forest. This laughter was filled with madness, but it also contained an aura that caused one's heart to palpitate. The 9 ghost slaves prostrated themselves on the ground. The Realm Lord's disciple still has a remnant soul in his body and an obsession in his heart. It's a pity that he's really too weak. It was impossible to tell whether this voice was male or female, but it seemed to be extremely excited. Apart from the 9 ghost slaves, there was no one else in the stone forest. Occasionally, a human would appear in front of them before disappearing. It was as if they were experiencing some kind of reincarnation. More than a month passed. Long Chen and the others finally returned to the Heavenly Harmony Divine Nation. It was very easy for Elder Su to leave the Heavenly Harmony Divine Nation, but he still had to use many methods to return. When the 2 of them stepped through the gates of the Heavenly Harmony Divine Nation, many of the Heavenly God of Misfortune's members revealed unprecedented expressions of fear. In this month, the 2 of them had already spread throughout the Heavenly Harmony Divine Nation. They had infiltrated the Heavenly Light God's territory and caused the entire Heavenly Light God to migrate. They had even destroyed a Void God's scorching sun. Not only that, it was said that they had even stepped into the Sea of Light Stone Forest. This piece of news had caused the 2 of them to become famous. Their names had probably already appeared in front of the 9 Chaos God tribes. "Don't let a third person know about our conversation," Elder Su and Long Chen said as they parted at the street corner. Long Chen nodded. Only then did the 2 of them look at each other and turn to leave. Long Chen walked toward the empty land, while Elder Su returned to his palace. Outside the empty land, Long Chen had just walked over when several members of the Heavenly God of Misfortune's branch immediately came over to greet him. They all bowed to Long Chen as if they were peers. The leader even said to him, "Sir, you're old friends with Elder Su, so you should stay in the city. There's no need to go to the mine. The environment there is quite bad." Long Chen looked at the change in attitude of these gray-robed members of the Heavenly God of Misfortune, and a smile appeared on his face. He said indifferently, "Everyone, there's no need to be like this. I think the empty land is quite good, and we get along quite well. I hope that you'll take care of me in the future." The corners of everyone's eyes twitched. Long Chen actually still wanted to enter the ethereal spirit land even though it was already so difficult. They looked at each other and stepped aside, allowing Long Chen to enter the space of the ethereal land. After Long Chen entered, "This guy is not simple." This time, he and Elder Su were able to turn the Heavenly Light God's bloodline upside down, and they even walked out of the Sea of Light Stone Forest. We definitely can't afford to provoke them. From today onwards, increase the amount of resources in this ethereal land by 10 times. Of course, the amount of spatial spirit stones handed over is still the same as usual. These things are extremely useful for the heavenly fusion ceremony. Everyone in the empty spirit land was oblivious to what was happening outside. When they saw that Long Chen had returned, they all breathed a sigh of relief. The old man from the destruction race walked forward and asked Long Chen, "You didn't really take him to the Heavenly God of Light, did you?" Long Chen smiled but did not say anything. He did not answer. He looked at the ethereal spirit stones in the distance and said to the old man, "How much have you learned about this place in the past month?" The old man looked at the barren land behind him and humphed coldly. "What is there to learn about this place? Aside from spatial spirit stones, nothing else exists here. However, ever since you left, those guys haven't made things difficult for the people here." Long Chen shook his head and asked in a hushed voice, "I'm asking you how much you know about the people here. Are they really traitors?" Do they really not believe in the heavenly fusion ceremony after entering this place? The old man frowned slightly, as if he didn't know why Long Chen was asking about this. However, he still nodded in response. He said in a low voice, "Almost everyone here is like us. Ever since they entered the divine kingdom, they've been arranged to stay here. Some of them even offended the heavenly fusion ceremony. Aside from the day they delivered the spatial spirit stones, almost everyone here has never left this place. Do you think that if they live like this day after day, they'll still be grateful enough to trust the heavenly fusion ceremony?" The old man's words were filled with mockery towards the heavenly fusion ceremony. In his eyes, the heavenly fusion ceremony wasn't as good as it seemed. Otherwise, how could there be such an ethereal spirit stone? Didn't the existence of this place prove that he only wanted to control people's hearts? Long Chen nodded and pondered for a moment before saying, "Tomorrow night, have Lan Haixin come find me. I have something to discuss with him." The old man's eyes narrowed and his voice grew more serious. He asked in a low voice, "What do you want to do? Could it be that you want to escape from the heavenly fusion divine kingdom?" As soon as his voice fell, he felt that this question was very idiotic. If Long Chen only wanted to escape from the heavenly fusion divine kingdom, he wouldn't have come back. He looked at Long Chen and wanted to hear what Long Chen wanted to do. Unfortunately, Long Chen didn't have any intention of answering him. The old man coldly snorted and turned to leave. Before he left, he said in a low voice, "Don't forget that they have the heavenly fusion imprint in their bodies. If something happens, they'll die faster than anyone else." After the old man left, Qing Xian asked Long Chen in a low voice, "Young master, are you really going to make a move during the heavenly fusion ceremony?" Long Chen nodded and brought Qing Xian to a mine. He transmitted his voice, "The heavenly fusion ceremony is my best chance. According to Elder Su, there are primal chaos dragon bones here. During the heavenly fusion ceremony, I want to take the primal chaos dragon bones from the Tao of disaster. Take the primal chaos dragon bones." Long Chen knew how difficult this was. The Tao of disaster called himself the heavenly fusion ceremony and was worshipped by everyone here. His strength was unfathomable. However, he didn't have any other choice. The primal chaos dragon bones were his only hope to continue increasing his cultivation. Every primal chaos dragon bone contained a divine ability of the Realm Lord when he was alive. As long as he obtained this item, not only would his cultivation explosively increase, he would also be able to use the divine abilities within. Of course, if that was all, he still wouldn't be able to leave this place. After all, there were many experts in the heavenly fusion divine kingdom. Just the heavenly god of misfortune's bloodline alone was a powerful obstacle. However, this wasn't impossible. Along the way, he and Elder Su had already made many plans. He was going to completely destroy the heavenly fusion divine kingdom's false faith during the heavenly fusion ceremony. The next morning, the heavenly god of misfortune's bloodline brought over a large amount of resources. Many people knew that these things were related to Long Chen, so they all thanked him. When Lan Haixin looked at Long Chen, she became more cautious. Before nightfall. Chapter 12:21. Lan Haixin and Long Chen glanced at each other, then walked toward a mine. Within the mine, Lan Haixin's face was filled with caution. Within the mine, the two of them sat on either side of a stone table. Lan Haixin took the lead and asked, "Tell me, what do you want?" Long Chen had only been in the empty land for about a month, but his behavior was completely different from everyone else's. This made her feel uneasy. Long Chen stared at Lan Haixin, then waved his right hand and set up a few simple isolation formations with his divine origin power. He said in a low voice, "I need the empty spirit iron here. I need a large amount of it." Lan Haixin's brows furrowed. She stood up and said, "Don't mention this again. Your business has nothing to do with the people of the empty land. If you want the empty spirit iron, you can mine it yourself. Bear the consequences. After saying this, Lan Haixin turned around and walked out of the mine. She didn't want to get involved with Long Chen at all. Long Chen shook his head slightly. Seeing that Lan Haixin was about to leave, he said, "The empty spirit storms are getting denser and denser. What if they don't want to let you out at the last moment? How many more years can you linger in this place? 10 years or 100 years?" Lan Haixin's footsteps faltered, but only for a moment. Long Chen continued, "What if I can find a way to remove the heavenly fusion mark in your bodies?" Lan Haixin couldn't help but tremble. She stopped walking again. In the end, she shook her head and smiled bitterly. "So what if I don't have the heavenly fusion mark? Where can we, the traders and humans, find a place to live? At least we don't have to live under the shadow of the primal chaos god tribe." Although the heavenly fusion god nation wasn't friendly to them, it was still the best place for them to live. Within the primal chaos realm, the 9 divine clans of chaos showed no mercy to the traders and the humans. If they left this place, they would probably die even faster and even more miserably. Long Chen continued, "The heavenly fusion god nation will continue to exist, but in a different way. This place is nothing more than a paradise created by the traders and humans." After returning from the heavenly light god's bloodline, he discussed many matters regarding the heavenly harmony divine nation with Elder Su along the way. Elder Su was a complete traitor to the gods, but he also snorted disdainfully at the heavenly harmony divine nation. His cultivation was profound, and his status within the heavenly harmony divine nation was even higher. The things he knew far surpassed others. According to him, the entire heavenly harmony divine nation seemed peaceful on the surface, but the upper echelons were secretly doing shady business. Evil Dao himself was a complete madman. He claimed to be the successor of the Realm Lord and had recruited all the humans and traders in the Chaos Realm, but in reality, he was perfecting a self-created divine art called Heavenly Fusion. This divine technique originated from the chaotic energy of the human race and the various chaotic divine tribes. In fact, this was also Long Chen's biggest doubt. Adao himself used the name of the Heavenly Harmony God Nation to take in almost all of the god traders and fleeing humans in the primal chaos realm. Their numbers almost made this place the 10th power in the primal chaos domain. But if he really was using the power of the human race and the traders to refine a divine art, then why was no one able to discover it? At the very least, there were no large numbers of humans or chaotic divine tribe deaths, and the lives of the people here were far more peaceful than those of the outside world. Even Elder Su was unable to answer this question. However, Elder Su was extremely certain that Evil Dao was not trying to create a pure land where humans and chaotic divine tribes could coexist. He had once secretly witnessed Adept killing more than 10 humans without the slightest bit of emotion. That cold killing intent was irrefutable proof. Evil Dao was not even a true traitor to the gods. Lan Haixin muttered to herself for a long time before finally turning around and asking Long Chen, "What exactly are you trying to do? I want to know all of your plans." It had to be said. Long Chen's words had moved Lan Haixin in a certain way. The ethereal storm and the heavenly fusion mark were the crux of everyone's worries. The so-called Heavenly Harmony Divine Nation had long since lost its allure to them. Being imprisoned in the ethereal land day after day, year after year, wasn't it also a kind of pain? Long Chen's lips curved into a smile, and he motioned for Lan Haixin to return to the seat in front of him. He knew that persuading Lan Haixin and the people of the ethereal land would not be difficult. These people did not enjoy any benefits from the Heavenly Harmony Divine Nation. Instead, their hearts were filled with resentment. Late at night, Lan Haixin walked out of the mine. Her face was a bit red. Long Chen's words had made her very excited, but she also felt like she was going crazy. Yo, Boss Haishin, you haven't really fallen for this kid, have you? You've only just come back, and you're already in the same room. A man teased Lan Haishin. Lan Haishin was startled, and then her face became a bit shy. She had only just realized that she had been alone with Long Chen in the mine for so long. She quickly calmed herself down, afraid that others would misunderstand. Don't talk nonsense. Long Chen and I were just discussing how to mine the ethereal iron in the future. Yo, is that true? We all believe you. You don't need to explain. Ha ha, no need to explain. You're a perfect match. Everyone teased Lan Haishin until she became angry. Then, they all laughed and left. This was one of the few ways they could entertain themselves in the ethereal land. Lan Haishin was angry for a moment, but she did not take it to heart. After all, this was not the first time something like this had happened. These people would talk about anything that happened for a whole day, but in reality, no one took it seriously. After everyone left, a man stared at Long Chen's mine with a gloomy face. He looked at Lan Haishin's back as she left, and the ethereal iron in his hand was crushed. This person was from the Divine Force Heavenly God clan. His cultivation level was around the second-order Divine Emperor realm. Let's go. What are you still looking at? You didn't really believe him, did you? You want to chase after Lan Haishin? You're not magnanimous enough. Another man teased. The man's face was still a bit ugly, but he followed him to another mine. The next day, Long Chen also joined the group that was mining the ethereal iron. The ethereal land seemed to have returned to its usual calm. Lan Haishin was still walking through the mines, but the news that she was telling everyone was slowly spreading. They were going to increase the amount of ethereal iron. Before the heavenly melting ceremony, they needed a large amount of ethereal iron. Chapter 12:22. The people of the ethereal land trusted Lan Haishin greatly. Even though they were suspicious, they didn't oppose her. In fact, very few people actually asked her for the reason. Mining ethereal iron had already become a part of their daily lives. Although a small number of people were a little worried about the empty spirit iron ores, they didn't show it too much. After all, the gray-robed members of the Misfortune God's bloodline wouldn't personally enter the mine to investigate. After all these years, nothing had ever happened in the ethereal land. The only reason they felt so at ease was because of the heavenly fusion mark. As long as the heavenly fusion mark existed, these people wouldn't be able to cause any trouble. Otherwise, how could these people have been willing to be imprisoned in the ethereal land for so many years? Things were progressing smoothly just as Long Chen had guessed. The people here still seemed optimistic, but in truth, they were already numb to this place. To Long Chen, this kind of feeling was quite sorrowful. Most of the god traders here had decent cultivation bases, but the constant repetition and the desolate space had gradually corroded their hearts. The heavenly fusion mark was the butcher's knife that forced them to submit. Time flew by. In the blink of an eye, 6 months had passed. During this time, the lives of the people of the ethereal land had improved. At the very least, the amount of resources sent in from the outside world had increased by several times. The only reason these resources could be sent in was because of Long Chen. During this time, Elder Su had personally come to inspect the place. This caused the gray-robed members of the Misfortune God's bloodline to become even more respectful. They even repeatedly tried to ask Long Chen to leave the ethereal land. During these 6 months, their feelings for Long Chen were probably second only to Lan Haishin's. During these 6 months, they had stored a large amount of ethereal iron in the mine. This amount of iron was twice the amount they had handed in over the past 6 months. As more and more iron was mined, Lan Haishin and Long Chen grew closer and closer. Sometimes the two of them would even meet late at night. Even though Qing Xian accompanied them, many people still began to speculate. There were many rumors and slanders. Many people didn't think much of it, and they even felt that Lan Haixin and Long Chen were a good match. In the ethereal land, why should they worry about such things? In the mine at night, Long Chen gave Lan Haixin the crystals he obtained from the Spring of Light and said, "This item can be used to carve Dao runes on space spirit iron. You should have memorized all the puppet Dao patterns that I have taught you over the past few months. For the rest of the time, the two of us will have to do it ourselves. If you can find two absolutely trustworthy people to help you, that's fine too." Lan Haixin nodded in agreement. Over the past few months, her impression of Long Chen had undergone an earth-shattering change. Long Chen's plan might be risky, but it wasn't impossible, especially with the puppet Dao patterns in their hands. This Dao pattern was really carved with the ethereal spirit iron stone. When it was turned into a puppet, it really had unfathomable power. The ethereal spirit iron stone was able to trap them here like prisoners. The only thing that puzzled her was how Long Chen was able to suppress the Dao of adversity. At this time, Long Chen did not say a word. After the two of them talked for a while, it was almost dawn. Lan Haixin prepared to leave the mine. Lan Haixin had just walked out of the mine when she saw more than 10 gray-robed people of the misfortune god's bloodline rush into the ethereal land. Their gazes all fell on Lan Haixin. Lan Haixin's expression changed, but she quickly recovered. She bowed and asked, "Last month's deadline for turning in the iron stone has passed. I wonder if you have other business here today?" The gray-robed leader's face was as gloomy as water. A beam of gray light shot out of his long sleeve and slammed her into the mine. Boom, boom, boom. A huge explosion, and the sound of the mine shaking spread throughout the entire ethereal land. Beam after beam of divine light shot out of the mine. More than 1,000 people in the mine stood in the air and flew toward Lan Haixin. Their faces all gradually darkened. Long Chen and Qing Xian also walked out of the mine. Long Chen frowned and looked at the gray-robed man of the misfortune god's bloodline in the sky. The gray-robed leader also looked at Long Chen. He had a playful expression on his face. His attitude toward Long Chen was completely different from a few months ago. He stared at Long Chen and said, "We gave you a lot of leeway because of Elder Su, but you refused a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit." Long Chen walked up and helped Lan Haixin up from the mine. He looked at the misfortune god's bloodline and said, "What do you mean by that? We have never left the ethereal land. What did we do wrong?" The gray-robed man sneered and said coldly, "Do you really think that everyone knows what you have done these days? Why did you mine so many ethereal spirit iron stones and store them in the mine?" As soon as he finished speaking, the gray-robed men behind him rushed toward Long Chen and Lan Haixin. "Surrender. You two come with me." Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. As soon as he finished speaking, more than 1,000 people from the ethereal land rushed out. Each of them emitted a violent aura and blocked their way. The gray-robed men stopped in their tracks. They faced more than 1,000 experts, but there was no fear on their faces. Instead, there was a mocking smile on their faces. The leader sneered and said, "Do you all want to die? Let's see who dares to offend the might of the heavens today." As soon as he finished speaking, gray-veined patterns began to condense in front of him on his right hand. These veined patterns did not contain any Dao law power, nor did they contain any divine power. However, as soon as the veins appeared, everyone's faces turned pale. These veins came from the same source as the heaven's fusion mark. As soon as the veins moved, the dozens of people who had rushed forward fell to the ground like broken kites and fell into the dust. Their lives disappeared without a trace. It was as if they had never existed. The gray-robed man looked at everyone playfully and said, "Is there anyone else who wants to step forward? Don't forget that this is the heaven's fusion divine nation." Everyone's bodies began to tremble violently. Countless divine power auras rose and fell. A violent power filled the entire ethereal land. The situation had reached a point where it was almost impossible to control. Long Chen and Lan Haixin stepped forward at almost the same time. Lan Haixin motioned for everyone to step back and not act rashly. She looked at the dozens of corpses on the ground and choked with sobs. Chapter 12:23. Inside the Empty Land. Everyone looked at Long Chen. His words were equivalent to directly admitting that they had stored a large amount of void spirit iron in the mine. Lan Haixin stood out from the crowd and explained to the gray-robed misfortune god, "We did mine the iron in advance, but we only plan to use it for the next 6 months. In the remaining 6 months, we plan to build a barrier to block the empty spirit storm, ha ha ha." As soon as Lan Haixin finished speaking, a divine power god stood out from behind the gray-robed misfortune god. This person was from the empty spirit land. He stared at Long Chen with hatred, then at Lan Haixin. He hissed, "Ever since he came back, he's been telling us to mine more. Is he really so kind as to build a barrier? If he really wants to strengthen the barrier, he should report it. I can testify that this person is very scheming. He doesn't want to stay in the empty land. He can't stay." The mail from the Divine Power Heavenly God clan was filled with hostility towards Long Chen. Lan Haixin and the rest of the empty spirit lands people were stunned by the scene in front of them. Soon after, they were enraged. "You ungrateful person! We've lived together in the empty land for so long, and you dare to harm us! That bastard! He wants to use us as a stepping stone to leave the empty land. Is he going to lick Tianrong's toes?" Many people shouted angrily, showing no respect for Tianrong. Lan Haixin looked at the divine power god and asked, "Brother, you've been in the empty land for 600 years. Why do you want to kill us?" Bah! As soon as Lan Haixin opened her mouth, the divine power god became even angrier. "You slut! Who doesn't know that I've had feelings for you all these years? How long has this person been in the empty land? You've been with him for so long." Long Chen's eyes were cold as he stared at the divine power god. Things had been going very well. He had never thought that this person would tell on him because of Lan Haixin. However, things had not reached a point of no return yet. If this person really endured for another month or two, when it was time to make the puppets, it would ruin everything. Enough. When the leader of the misfortune Heavenly Gods group heard the commotion, he let out a roar, and the item in his hand, which was of the same origin as the Heavenly Fusion imprint, trembled. Everyone fell silent. "Long Chen, come with us." The leader's pupils shrank as he shouted at Long Chen. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, he had already crushed a jade slip in his right hand. Long Chen did not resist and nodded in agreement. The misfortune Heavenly Gods people sneered and thought that Long Chen was tactful. The leader looked at Long Chen and said, "Elder Su's problem seems to have been solved. Heavenly Rong is very curious about you now." Heaven Fusion. Everyone in the empty land looked at each other in dismay as they watched Long Chen leave. Long Chen was actually going to meet the Tao of Disaster. In fact, even Long Chen was slightly shocked. He didn't expect that he had already entered the Tao of Disaster's line of sight. Bang! Just as everyone was about to leave the empty spirit land, they were suddenly forced back by a powerful force. Long Chen said indifferently, "I'm afraid I can't leave the empty spirit land with everyone yet." The misfortune Heavenly Gods people were all ashen as they looked towards the source of the powerful force. When the leader saw Elder Su appear, he immediately shouted, "Elder Su, are you still planning to stand out?" Long Chen had led the empty spirit lands people to hide the empty spirit iron Oregon. It was already beyond their tolerance. The reason why they did not directly use the Heavenly Fusion imprint to kill Long Chen was already giving him enough face. Of course, they did not know that the Heavenly Fusion imprint in Long Chen's body could not be activated. Elder Su stopped, but there was a group of gray-robed people from the misfortune Heavenly God's bloodline behind him. This group of gray-robed people entered the empty spirit land after Elder Su. The moment they appeared, the gray-robed people who had captured Long Chen immediately changed their expressions. They all knelt on one knee and saluted. Just pretend that you don't know what happened today. I will personally report to the Heavenly Fusion Imprint, the gray-robed person behind Elder Su said in a hoarse voice. The gray-robed person who had originally wanted to capture Long Chen did not have any intention of asking any questions. He turned around and was about to leave the empty spirit land. When the divine power Heavenly God saw this, he could not help but shout, "How can you let him go like this? He has committed a great crime by hiding the empty spirit iron ore." "Shut up. If you want to live, leave with us," the gray-robed person in the lead shouted at him. He actually ignored him and left the empty spirit land. This person's face was full of unwillingness, but he also knew that there was no place for him in the empty spirit land. Lan Haixin and the others saw this and breathed a sigh of relief. Long Chen also calmed down. What happened today was truly unexpected, and it almost caused his plan to fail at the last moment. Elder Su walked up and said to Long Chen in a low voice, "This is the ancestor of the Heavenly Fusion Imprint. To be precise, he is the father of the Heavenly Fusion Imprint." The father of the Heavenly Fusion Imprint. The father of the Heavenly Fusion Imprint? Long Chen and Elder Su had a connection. If there was an unforeseen event, he would crush the jade slip and Elder Su would come. He never thought that Elder Su would bring the father of the Heavenly Fusion Imprint here. "You don't have to be like this. I already know everything about you." The gray-robed person slowly walked towards Long Chen. Long Chen subconsciously took 2 steps back. His heart was full of vigilance. He even frowned as he looked at Elder Su. When Elder Su saw Long Chen and Lan Haixin's reactions, he was not surprised. He said in a low voice, "This matter is far more complicated than you think. If the plan is to be carried out, I think it has to be him. Let's talk inside the mine for now. I'm afraid that today's matter is not over yet." Lan Haixin finally looked at Long Chen. Compared to Elder Su and this person from the Heavenly God of Misfortune's bloodline, she trusted Long Chen more. Long Chen hesitated for a moment. He felt that Elder Su had no reason to betray him, so he nodded and agreed. After everyone entered the mine, the other people in the empty spirit land looked at each other in dismay. They all felt that this matter was not simple. Otherwise, why would Elder Su and the father of the Heavenly Fusion Imprint appear in this prison? Long Chen had been mining large amounts of empty spirit iron during this period of time. It was not to build a barrier. It was just to stall for time. Although everyone was confused, they could not imagine that Long Chen's ultimate goal was the Heavenly Fusion Imprint and the chaotic dragon bone in his hands. Within the Heavenly Fusion Divine Nation, the Heavenly Fusion Imprint represented the highest authority. Chapter 12:24. Inside the mine, Long Chen, Old Su, and the others revealed their entire plan. When Izu heard that Long Chen wanted to refine soul-suppressing puppets, he was shocked. He pondered for a moment and asked Long Chen, "Since you can think of using empty spirit iron to refine realm-suppressing puppets, you should know that this item can't suppress Yi Dao. With our battle power, we can't defeat Yi Dao. Why did you refine so many realm-suppressing puppets?" Long Chen took a deep breath and nodded. Yi Dao was able to establish the Heavenly Harmony Divine Nation and had the Chaos Dragon Bone. It was enough to see how terrifying his battle power was. Puppets made from empty spirit iron alone were not enough to suppress him. They would be walking on thin ice during the Heavenly Harmony ceremony. What I want is not to suppress him, but to seize the Chaos Dragon Bone. And to let everyone understand that he is not the successor of the ancient Saint World Master. Long Chen replied in a deep voice, but it was not all about the realm-suppressing puppets. Old Su and Lan Haixin finally understood Long Chen's meaning. Yi Zhu frowned. You mean to say that after seizing the Chaos Dragon Bone, you want the entire Heavenly Harmony Divine Nation to work together to suppress Yi Dao? Long Chen did not answer, but his meaning was self-evident. It was impossible for them to suppress Yi Dao with just the few of them. Only this method could guarantee victory. There were countless traitors in the Heavenly Harmony Divine Nation. There were also many strange humans who had talents that surpassed the Chaos God tribe. If this power rebelled against Yi Dao, he would not be able to resist. Long Chen was silent, but his gaze never left Yi Zhu. I want to know, since you are Yi Dao's father, why are you helping us? If old Su did not vouch for him, Long Chen would never believe that Yi Dao's father would help him. How many people in the world could be exempt from this? Even though Yi Dao established the Heavenly Harmony Divine Nation for two different reasons, it was not enough for his father to put justice before family. Yi Zhu smiled bitterly and shook his head. His face was filled with helplessness and bitterness. I came here today to plead on his behalf. Even if you have the Chaos Dragon Bone, you might be able to suppress him. I also hope that you can spare his life. He's not a bad person. Long Chen frowned and sneered. If that's the case with your cultivation, wouldn't it be safer for you to kill us now? This time, Yi Zhu didn't say anything, but Elder Su let out a long sigh and explained. It turned out that Elder Su and the ancestor of disaster had known each other for thousands of years. The two of them were best friends. Otherwise, in the Heavenly Harmony Divine Nation, Elder Su wouldn't have been able to make so many people from the misfortune Heavenly God's bloodline treat him with such respect. Elder Su and Yi Dao had known each other for a long time. Among the misfortune Heavenly God's lineage, Adept Dao could be said to be a proud son of heaven. He was also obsessed with cultivation. He never asked about the matters between the human race and the Chaos God tribe. He had never felt that the human race was despicable, nor did he feel that the God race was noble. Everything was like a fleeting cloud in his eyes. However, everything changed on the day he obtained the Chaos Dragon Bone. After obtaining the Chaos Dragon Bone, he actually comprehended the profound mysteries within and understood that this item was one of the Emperor Lord's inheritances. Yi Dao was a genius. Just by relying on the Chaos Dragon Bone's intent, his cultivation path was smooth. The speed at which his cultivation rose shocked the entire misfortune Heavenly God's bloodline. They had even internally decided that he would be the next patriarch of the misfortune Heavenly God's bloodline. However, everything changed drastically when he went through the trial of misfortune. The trial of misfortune. This trial was just an ordinary ceremony in the misfortune Heavenly God's bloodline. Anyone who reached the fifth layer of the God Emperor realm or above had to participate in it. However, the trial of misfortune that Yi Dao participated in was slightly different from the previous one. At that time, the misfortune Heavenly God's bloodline was being suppressed by the God traitors and the human race. Therefore, the trial's target wasn't origin beasts but humans. The patriarch of the misfortune Heavenly God's bloodline wanted to tell all living beings of the misfortune Heavenly God's bloodline that any God traitors or humans who appeared in the bloodline would definitely not have a good ending. During that trial, Yi Dao used the aura of misfortune to slaughter everyone, including the God traitors of the same race. After that, Yi Dao was still immersed in cultivation. However, as his cultivation increased, his entire person gradually began to change. He claimed to be the Emperor Lord's inheritor and preached the so-called true meaning of heaven fusion. From then on, he caused a huge uproar in the misfortune Heavenly God's bloodline. With his own strength, he led many God traitors and followers to charge out of the misfortune Heavenly God's bloodline. Then, he established the Heaven Fusion Divine Nation. When Long Chen and the others heard this, they were all indescribably shocked. No one would have thought that Yi Dao's path to Heaven Fusion would be so inconceivable. Lan Haixin couldn't help but ask, then why did he suddenly preach about heaven fusion? Is he really the Realm Lord's inheritor? Is his original intention in establishing the heaven fusion divine nation to allow the human race and the Chaos God tribe to coexist? Or is it to find a pure land for the human race and God traders? Izu and Elder Su both shook their heads. Izu seemed to be immersed in his memories. I don't know why he suddenly preached about heaven fusion. I don't know why his mind changed so much, but I know that all of this is inseparable from that trial. Now, I'm also certain that Yi Dao isn't the Emperor Lord's inheritor as he spoke. His eyes fell on Long Chen. The Emperor Lord's remnant soul in Long Chen's mind had already understood everything about heaven fusion from his words. Long Chen pondered for a moment and said to Izu, I might already know why Yi Dao is like this. If this is true, as long as he repents at the last moment, I'll spare his life. After that, Long Chen shook his head and laughed. Of course, the premise is that during the heaven fusion ceremony, everything will go according to plan. Otherwise, the ones who will die will be us. After everyone had a discussion, Izu and Elder Su left the ethereal land once again. However, after this, the entire ethereal land had completely changed into a group of gray robes belonging to the misfortune heavenly god's bloodline. These people were clearly Izu's subordinate. Izu's identity gave him a lot of power and many people didn't want to cause trouble. Of course, another reason was that they still thought that everyone was suppressed by the heaven fusion imprint and that there wouldn't be any chaos within the heaven fusion divine nation. This was indeed the case. Ever since the heaven fusion divine nation was established, there hadn't been any chaos. In a way, this place could be considered a pure land. After Izu and Elder Su left, Long Chen and Lan Haixin decided to tell the people of the ethereal land about the realm's suppressing puppet. Chapter 12:25. Time flew by. Ever since old General Ursula joined the battle, the ethereal land had become freer. There were no more unforeseen events. The world-suppressing puppets stood in the ethereal land like indomitable giants. Their bodies were covered in dazzling white patterns. These patterns intertwined with each other as if they contained the light of the sun. If Long Chen hadn't obtained this item from the light spring in the Sea of Light Stone Forest, he wouldn't have thought of refining the world-suppressing puppets. Refining the world-suppressing puppets wasn't difficult. However, if one wanted to refine a powerful world-suppressing puppet, there was a high requirement for the materials. In fact, according to the Emperor Lord's remnant soul, even if ordinary iron could be refined according to the world-suppressing puppet technique, its power would be incomparable. Long Chen's void spirit iron wasn't the best material to refine the world-suppressing puppet. However, it was the most suitable material right now. The void spirit iron had a unique effect. It could suppress Tao laws. These realm suppression puppets were able to fully utilize this characteristic. The sky gradually darkened. The next day was the day of the heavenly fusion ceremony. Long Chen brought Qing Xian and Lan Haixin to gather everyone in the ethereal land. During this time, everyone was busy mining the void spirit iron and refining the world-suppressing puppet. However, they didn't know the real reason Long Chen needed these things. Today was the day he told them everything. What did you say? During the heavenly fusion ceremony tomorrow, you're going to go against the Tao of Calamity? Just with these things? My God, Lan Haixin, are you really going to participate in this? During the heavenly fusion ceremony, all the divine emperors in the heavenly fusion divine nation will be there. You're just sending yourselves to your deaths. If we knew this would happen, we wouldn't have helped you mine so much void spirit iron. With these things, you won't be able to defeat the Tao of Calamity alone. Why did you choose to do it during the heavenly fusion ceremony? When Long Chen and Lan Haixin told everyone what was going to happen the next day, the entire empty land was in an uproar. Everyone thought that they were simply crazy. The strongest person present was only a third-order God Emperor. This level of strength wasn't bad, but it was nothing compared to the people participating in the heavenly fusion ceremony. They knew that this was related to Long Chen. However, Long Chen's cultivation was only at the First Order God Emperor realm. This kind of cultivation was not worth mentioning in front of the Tao of Calamity. Long Chen was just about to explain. He was even going to tell them the exact plan, but Lan Haixin stopped him. Lan Haixin took a step forward and pointed world ethereal land. The eye of the storm visible to the naked eye was condensing in the void where her finger was pointing. The ethereal iron mountain was being mined in large quantities, and following that, the ethereal storm was forming. The amount of void spirit iron we've mined this year is only equivalent to the total amount we'll mine in the next 3 years. However, the void spirit land is becoming increasingly fragile. The number of ethereal storms has reached 3 times a month. If this continues, how much longer can we stay here? Do you still remember how many years we've been here? Do you still remember? We've been mining void spirit iron for so long that we're used to it. But if we run out of void spirit iron, do you think the Tao of Calamity will let us leave and give us freedom? Lan Haixin's words made everyone fall silent. They had been mining void spirit iron for so long that they were numb to it. Freedom? They had forgotten what it felt like to be free. They even hoped that after this was over, there would be another ethereal land waiting for them. Were they really going to be trapped here and wait for the void spirit storm to devour them? Lan Haixin smiled bitterly and shook her head. She looked at everyone and said, "It's time for us to go out and see the sun and freedom of the outside world. Whether you're a human or a traitor, you shouldn't be living like this. You're all God Emperors. If you lose this battle, you might have a chance to lick the heavens' toes and beg to stay in the heavens fusion kingdom instead of being trapped in this ethereal land." When she said that, everyone couldn't help but smile bitterly. The leader of the group laughed and shouted, "The more you say, the more emotional you get. But I can see that you won't lick the heavens' toes. Ha ha. Motherf asterisk cur, I've been mining all day and I've forgotten that I'm a second-order God Emperor. I've been cultivating for thousands of years. I don't plan on dying here. Even if I find another ethereal land, I won't do it. I'm going to cut off the heavens' toes. If that doesn't work, I'm going to help him trim his toenails." Everyone in the ethereal land seemed to have returned to normal. Lan Haixin and Qing Xian couldn't help but laugh. Lan Haixin's tears fell as she laughed. The 1,000 people here had come to the Heavens Fusion Kingdom with hope, but for various reasons, they ended up in the ethereal land. Tomorrow would be the day they rebelled. They didn't even ask Long Chen how to deal with the Heavens Fusion mark. They just agreed. The sky gradually brightened. The door to the ethereal land was already open. Long Chen and Lan Haixin left with a few third-order God Emperors. Ancestor Yi and Elder Su were already waiting for them outside the ethereal land. When Elder Su saw Long Chen and the others walk out, he let out a long breath. He looked at the ancient Saint World statue in the distance and said, "Are you ready? If we're not careful, we'll be doomed." Long Chen nodded and a smile appeared on his face. He replied, "Today's success or failure depends on whether the traitors and humans in the Heavens Fusion Kingdom truly believe in the ancient Saint World's Heavens Fusion true intent." Ancestor Yi and the others shook their heads and smiled bitterly. They walked towards the ancient Saint World statue. Below the ancient Saint World statue was the Heavens Fusion ceremony. At this moment, the entire Heavens Fusion Kingdom seemed to have come alive. Anyone who had reached the God Emperor realm walked towards the statue with a pious expression on their faces. There were even some who chose to kowtow 9 times. This scene made Lan Haixin and the other third-order God Emperors who had walked out of the ethereal land snort coldly. They couldn't understand the faith of this group of people. They had gone through so much to reach the God Emperor realm. Was it all for the sake of kowtowing 9 times? On the other hand, Long Chen looked at the people in front of him, and he had a new understanding of the word faith. Perhaps this faith wasn't as bad as what he had told Qing Xian. Chapter 12:26. Outside the heavenly harmony divine nation. Streaks of divine light could be seen in the void. As the sun rose into the sky, many figures appeared in the clouds. The leader of the group was the leader of the heavenly light god. There were close to 1,000 people following behind him. Guang Su, that god trader, does he really think that he can hide in the heavenly harmony divine nation forever after destroying one of our treasures? Guang Shan's eyes were like torches. It was as if he could see through the void. An elder behind him bowed and replied, "Leader, if the intelligence from the various Chaos God tribes is correct, today should be the day of the Heavenly Harmony Divine Nation's grand ceremony. During the grand ceremony, all the God Emperors will gather. Although we don't fear them, we might not be able to obtain any benefits. It's best to wait until sunset before forcefully opening a path to enter." Guang Shan nodded and chuckled coldly. No matter what, we have to kill Guang Su and that youth by his side today. This person is able to activate the light badge. He's definitely not simple. That Tao of Calamity is even more important. The reason why he's able to achieve what he has today is all because of that bone. Recently, it seems that the heavenly god of Calamity has obtained another bone. If we can suppress the Tao of Calamity, we'll definitely be able to compete with the other tribes. Elsewhere, the Heavenly Harmony ceremony had begun. It had to be said, the Heavenly Light God had made a wise decision to come today. The opening of the Heavenly Harmony ceremony caused all the God Emperors and above to gather below the ancient Sacred Realm Lord's statue. Naturally, their surveillance of the outside world was greatly reduced. There were countless people standing below the ancient Sacred Realm Lord's statue. There were many god traders among these people. They came from the 9 Chaos God tribes of the Primal Chaos Realm. All of them were covered in scales and exuded powerful auras. There were also many humans. However, these humans looked quite similar to the god traders. Many of the descendants of the human and Chaos God tribes only had eyes and hair like Lan Haixin. However, some humans had scales on half of their bodies, while the other half looked no different from humans. There were also some humans who were uncontrollably exuding the terrifying aura of the Chaos God tribe. Their talent far surpassed that of the Chaos God tribe. Most of these strange humans stood at the very front. Long Chen, Lan Haixin, and the others were led by Elder Su and Izu to a spot not far away from these people. They were only 100 meters away from the ancient Saint World Lord's statue. Buzz buzz buzz. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd. Behind the ancient Saint Sector Lord's statue, a 10-meter-long crack was gradually torn open in the void. Within the crack, a ray of light shot out. It was a huge cauldron. Chapter 12:27. Chaos Dragon Bone. This bone was called the Demonic Star. Every piece of Chaos Dragon Bone contained a powerful spell of the ancient Sacred Sector Master. This power was not something everyone could withstand. The slightest carelessness could lead to eternal damnation. Under everyone's watchful eyes, the 9 Chaos God tribe members charged toward the ancient Sacred Sector Master's statue's palms with extreme speed. Blood rained down from the sky. These 9 people represented the 9 Chaos God tribes. At this moment, their souls and bloodlines had all landed on the statue's palms. The 9 colored patterns on the giant stone palms began to flicker. Powerful blood energy and souls instantly sank into them. The entire ancient Sacred Sector Master's statue began to shine with divine light as if it could really come to life at any time. When the Emperor Master's remnant soul saw this, he said to Long Chen, "This person is really talented." The reason why he gathered everyone again was to let the power of faith suppress the Chaos Dragon Bone. Then, he used the sacrificial method to let the 9 Chaos God tribes' origins assimilate the demonic star's power. Although he has been devoured by the demonic star, if he didn't do this, he would have died a violent death long ago. How could he have reached his current cultivation level? Old Su, Disaster Ancestor, and the others watched the scene unfold in front of them. Their expressions were extremely ugly. In the end, they looked at Long Chen. Long Chen shook his head, indicating that it was not the right time. If they attacked now, they would not be able to touch the Chaos Dragon Bone at all. It would only cause all their preparations to go down the drain. However, just as Long Chen shook his head, he felt a gaze that seemed to have materialized on his body. At this moment, everyone felt as if their hearts had fallen into an ice cave. Surprisingly, this gaze came from the Tao of Calamity. Disaster Tao stared at Long Chen. After their eyes met for a moment, he said, "You removed the power of darkness from Old Su's body. You also stored a large amount of Void Spirit Iron Stones in the Void Land. Now you even walked out of the Void Land under my father's lead. I really want to know what you want to do." Disaster Tao's grayish-white eyes were filled with playfulness. Elder Su, Lan Haixin, and the others all turned pale and couldn't help but retreat. Only Long Chen was surprised, but he quickly recovered and took a step forward. "I just want to tell everyone that the miracle of your Sector Lord's statue is fake." Countless godly emperors were in an uproar when they heard that. Who is this person? How dare he disrespect the Realm Lord's miracle? Long Chen, why did Long Chen do such an idiotic thing? He is committing suicide. This kind of person who doesn't respect the heavens should be trapped in the empty spirit land for all eternity. When Disaster Tao saw this, he didn't seem to want to wait any longer. His hands moved in the air and streaks of terrifying power turned into grayish-white threads that shot towards Long Chen. He roared, "I told you to hand over the realm-suppressing cauldron soul, you don't have the right to have it." Old Su, Disaster Ancestor, and the others' expressions changed greatly. They all had a light crystal in their hands that was instantly crushed into powder that scattered in the air. The powder actually gradually condensed into mysterious Tao patterns that floated in the sky. At the same time, there was a huge upheaval in the ethereal spirit land. The world-suppressing puppets made of void spirit iron and stone disappeared with the people inside. At this moment, Long Chen was already in front of the god statue. He stared at the god statue and his entire aura seemed to have undergone a huge change. He didn't even look at Disaster Tao's terrifying attack. His voice was filled with endless loneliness and vicissitudes. Return? When the dust dissipates, the ancient sacred god world has already changed. Rumble. As his voice fell, the towering god statue that had just received the bloodline and soul of the 9 Chaos God tribes actually slowly bowed towards Long Chen. The god statue's body that was suppressed by ethereal spirit iron actually cracked inch by inch at this moment. Countless rays of divine light and origin aura rushed out from within. The resplendent brilliance was like countless arrows that whistled through the air and shot into the sky. The terrifying power directly sent Disaster Tao flying. His attack was completely annihilated by the brilliance. Under the brilliance, Chapter 12:28. Because of Long Chen's appearance, the entire Heaven Fusion ceremony had undergone an earth-shattering change. The ancient sacred sector lord's statue bent over and shattered, and the world suppression cauldron under Adept's feet also turned into powder. This scene was extremely shocking to everyone who believed in the Heaven Fusion ceremony. Adept's expression completely changed, and he stared at Long Chen. He never thought that Long Chen's words would cause the statue to bend over and block his attack. Long Chen's words just now seemed to have unfathomable power, and they were filled with unprecedented vicissitudes of life. Even the image of the Sector Lord's statue vaguely appeared in his mind. This person offended the Sector Lord and destroyed the Sector Lord's statue. Take him down. Adept roared after a short moment of shock. Countless godly emperors rushed up upon hearing this. All the god betrayers and humans in the Heaven Fusion God Nation glared at Long Chen. Rumble. Before they could make a move, Elder Su, Adept of Adept, and the others all used their techniques, and ethereal world suppression puppets appeared in the sky. Each world suppression puppet had a person from the ethereal land sitting on it, and there were hundreds of them. The world suppression puppets expanded in the wind, and instantly suppressed all directions. The terrifying suppression power caused everyone's attacks to stagnate, and the world suppression puppets actually surrounded Long Chen in the center. The moment the world suppression puppets appeared, the power of Tao laws in everyone's attacks instantly dissipated into nothingness. Adept of Adept's face was filled with frenzied killing intent. He took the initiative to attack the world suppression puppet. His battle strength was truly terrifying, and even without Tao laws, he could still shatter several world suppression puppets with a single attack. How long can you stop me with just these things? You're committing suicide. Adept of Adept's anger was uncontrollable. Just as he finished speaking, his body froze on the spot. At this moment, the Sector Lord's statue's head had completely shattered, and a black light flickered inside, like an illusory black dragon breathing. Long Chen spoke for the first time. These world suppression puppets aren't here to stop you, but to stop all the godly emperors for a moment. The other reason is to completely suppress the Tao laws. After saying that, Long Chen's right hand fell towards the black dragon light. At the same time, Yi Dao's hands swept through the air, and numerous profound markings shot towards him. Roar. Rumbling dragon roars could be heard from within the primal chaos dragon bone. The head and tail of the primal chaos dragon bone were actually captured by Long Chen and Adeo. I've already refined this item for 1,000 years. What right do you have to fight me over it? Gray and white alternated in Yi Dao's eyes, as if he was using all of his strength to fight Long Chen for this item. Long Chen stared at the Tao of disaster and muttered, "If this Tao law was still the same as before, maybe you could compete with me, but now you can't win against me." Boom. Boom. Long Chen's right hand shook, and the countless threads of Tao law on the Chaos Dragon Bone started to crumble inch by inch. The aura of the Chaos Dragon Bone instantly became violent. Poochie. Evil Tao was sent flying as blood spurted out from his mouth. His eyes were filled with shock as he cried out involuntarily, how could you possibly erase the aura I left on the Chaos Dragon Bone? Even if the world-suppressing puppet had weakened the Tao law on it, how could a First-Order God Emperor like you do this? His voice whistled, but the Chaos Dragon Bone was gradually being captured by Long Chen. Buzz. The instant the Chaos Dragon Bone fell into Long Chen's hand, the world seemed to shake. For a moment, the wind and clouds changed color. He looked at the Chaos Dragon Bone in his hand, and an unprecedented sense of familiarity rose in his heart. This feeling was as if this item was a part of his body. This thing was mine to begin with. He took a deep breath and looked at Yi Dao. I am the true successor of the ancient sacred divine world's world lord, and everything you've done is just deceiving yourself. Under everyone's watchful eyes, Long Chen's voice reverberated throughout the heavenly harmony divine nation. Countless god emperors stopped their attacks and started to discuss. Their hearts seemed to have been shaken. The strange power Long Chen had displayed was really inconceivable. He was just a first-order god emperor, and he had even snatched the item from the world lord's statue from Yi Dao's hands. Rumble! Rumble! Yi Dao was already crazily bombarding the world-suppressing puppet, as if he wanted to vent all the anger in his heart. The world-suppressing puppet began to crumble at a speed visible to the naked eye. Yi Ancestor, Old Su, and the others saw this and their expressions became solemn. They knew that even if Long Chen had the Chaos Dragon Bone, He was no match for Yi Dao. Even the two of them did not dare to face Yi Dao's cultivation. Buzz. Long Chen did not look at Yi Dao at all, and the Chaos Dragon bone gradually disappeared into his body. He soared into the sky and muttered, "All races in the world are born equal, yin and yang are incompatible, and all things merge. This is the heavenly harmony. I am the true successor of the World Lord." The moment his voice fell, an illusory brilliance condensed around him, and it turned into the World Lord's shadow, vast and mighty between heaven and earth. Inside the heavenly harmony divine nation, countless god betrayers and humans were also shining with a myriad of brilliance, as if Long Chen's words were the truth of the divine world. This unprecedented aura made everyone completely believe his words. In fact, at this moment and when the statue bowed, it was the World Lord himself who said it. His words and actions were enough to shock these so-called believers. Since they believed in the ancient Saint World Lord's so-called heavenly harmony, then they should be able to see the power Long Chen was displaying. Heavenly harmony, this is the true heavenly harmony. The aura of the ancient Saint World Lord, he actually merged the Chaos Dragon bone into his body. Rumor has it that the Chaos Dragon bone is an inheritance left behind by the World Lord. If he can completely merge with it, he will be the true successor of the World Lord. Yi Dao has deceived us. He is not the successor of the World Lord, otherwise why would he need the flesh and souls of the 9 god clans to nourish the Chaos Dragon bone? Countless shouts rose and fell one after another, spreading out like a tide. Plop plop. All the attacks had stopped, and they once again prostrated on the ground, chanting piously. The place where they were praying was where Long Chen was. Yi Dao, your mind was affected by the World Lord's inheritance, the Chaos Dragon bone. In order to protect yourself, you established the Heavenly Harmony Divine Nation to collect the power of faith. If you turn back today, I will help you extract the power of the Devil Star Dragon bone. Long Chen stared at Yi Dao, his voice like thunder. Although Yi Dao was at fault, he was not completely wrong. After all, the Heavenly Harmony Divine Nation had taken in so many god betrayers and humans. If it was not for Yi Dao, perhaps these people would have died in the hands of the 9 god clans. If you are still unwilling to turn back, you will die in the hands of the Heavenly Harmony Divine Nation you established with your own hands. Long Chen's gaze landed on countless deity emperors. Chapter 12:29. Seeing everyone paying their respects to Long Chen, Yi Dao went mad. His gaze ultimately stared at the phantom formed by the Sector Lord aura around Long Chen as he hissed, "Impossible, impossible. Only I can refine the Chaos Dragon bone in this world. If I'm not the Sector Lord's successor, why would the Chaos Dragon bone find me?" As he spoke madly, the aura of the heavenly god of misfortune around him gradually turned pitch black. Just as Long Chen said, he had already been corroded by the Chaos Dragon bone's power. Every piece of Chaos Dragon bone contained the Sector Lord's most powerful ability. This piece of Chaos Dragon bone called Demon Star was even more evil. It was not something an ordinary person could control. Of course, Long Chen had the Chaos Golden Codex and was the true Sector Lord's successor. He had already devoured most of the Sector Lord's flesh and blood, so he was not afraid of the Chaos Dragon bone. This was also why he could easily fuse the Chaos Dragon bone into his body. Yi Dao did not have the slightest bit of regret. The tyrannical power on his body became stronger and stronger. It was as if he was losing his rationality due to his anger. Yi Dao's own power was enough to shake the heavens and earth. A great battle was about to break out. If Yi Dao really wanted to fight against the entire God Emperor of Heaven Harmony God Nation by himself, the only outcome would be death. Yi Ancestor suddenly flew out from Old Su's side and charged in front of Yi Dao. His eyes were filled with regret. Yi Dao, he really is the Sector Lord's successor. It's time for all of this to end. And Yi Dao looked at Yi Ancestor in a daze. His eyes were alternating between gray and white. He seemed to be struggling. Puchi. Under everyone's gaze, Yi Dao suddenly exploded and directly shattered Yi Ancestor's body. He grabbed his soul and said coldly, "It's impossible for all of this to end. One day, I will truly obtain the Sector Lord's inheritance and become a titled emperor. I will fight for the Sector Lord's position." Bang! Gray power poured into Yi Ancestor's body. He then turned into a stream of light and flew towards the exit of Heaven Harmony God Nation. Long Chen was just about to order everyone to kill Yi Dao, but he felt a majestic soul energy cutting off his voice and divine thought. "He's my son, I don't blame him, please let him live." The ancestor of disaster's soul crumbled inch by inch under the grayish-white power of the Tao of disaster. He used the last of his soul power to stop Long Chen. Long Chen could only let out a long sigh as he watched the Tao of adversity disappear into nothingness in the blink of an eye. Even as the spirit of the evil ancestor dissipated, it still stared at the place where the evil Tao had left. He had originally wanted Long Chen to enter the Tao of adversity to remove the dragon bone aura in his body. However, the current situation was simply impossible to develop in such a way.